and thank you for coming to this evening's City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. It is 6:45 p.m. and this meeting is called to order. Let's rise if we can for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Chow? Here. Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Way?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Here.
Mayor Mohan?
Here. Okay.
Mayor, I'd just like to make a brief announcement about the teleconference procedures for the meeting today. So as you all can see, Councilmember Way is present via teleconference. So there's some requirements under the Brown Act that we need to follow to comply with the statute. All votes will be taken by roll call. There is an agenda posted at the teleconference location from where Councilmember Way is taking this meeting. That location is accessible to the public, and I'll ask Councilmember Way to let the clerk know if there happen to be any members of the public that wish to make comments there, and we will be able to accommodate that. So with that, I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of those ground rules as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Councilmember Way, good to see you. Welcome.
Good to see everyone. Good to be seen.
Okay, we can see you. Would you like to say a few words before we start?
Absolutely. I want to just let everyone know how grateful my family and I do this journey. We felt so much love and care from Cupertino. Cupertino is truly our home. And, the company that we have, not just the food that delivered to my house, but also just that plant company. I have so many people who come to me and say, don't worry about us. Just close your eyes and we'll keep you company. And that's feel like home, I feel like I'm home and I can always sleep very well when my friends are in my house or in the hospital. The journey is incredible. And I want to tell every Cupertino resident that we felt so much love and so much care, and Cupertino is truly our home. So this is a heartfelt thank you from my family and me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Way. It's good to see you again, if only on the Zoom screen. Let's see. Is there a closed session report, Mr. City Attorney?
There is. I'm happy to announce that the city has reached an agreement with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration resolving a dispute regarding the allocation of sales and use tax in the city. That settlement was approved by the City Council by a 5-0 vote on February 21st, 2024, in which they authorized the city attorney to negotiate and execute a settlement agreement. The settlement itself is confidential, but there is an agenda item today asking the City Council to uncommit $74.5 million in reserves that were set aside for sales tax repayment funds. So that gives you a sense of the magnitude of the fiscal impact on the city. And I just, since I have this audience, I just want to make sure that I thank Gabriel McWhorter of Jarvis Fay, who was our outside counsel and who very ably represented the city in the case. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I just wanted to take a moment to thank and recognize our city attorney, Chris Jensen, and his legal team for this exceptional work on the CDTFA settlement. This is a big win for us, and it will significantly benefit the city. The city attorney was able to secure a favorable outcome and securing millions for our city and strengthening the city's financial position. So thank you to the city attorney and your team.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, are there any ceremonial items, Madam City Manager?
We do have two presentations available for you tonight, Mayor. So we have the Planning Commission, and Chair Fawn is here to make his presentation, and followed by the Sustainability Commission.
Good evening, Mayor Moen, Vice Mayor Fruin, and all council members and staff. It's my honor tonight to come here as the chair of the Planning Commission to talk about what we're doing. I think the order in the packet might have been reversed of the presentation, but it's just a few pages in. If we could go to the presentation, that would be great. Nothing more to say there. The next slide is our members. I think you probably know all of us. Seema Linskog is the vice chair. Muni, Tejesh, and Stephen are the commissioners on the Planning Commission at this time. Next slide, please. The next slide is what we do. The Planning Commission is unusual among the commissions in Cupertino in that we have jurisdictional power. We've been delegated jurisdictional power on some matters, conditional use permits, and certain kinds of reviews. Those, should a decision be made in the Planning Commission, that still is could still be appealed here at the City Council. But what we serve as to advise, an advisory role to the council on all matters related to land use. The kind of bounds of what we work on is called out in the municipal code and in the California government code. But generally what we do is oversee, make sure the general plan is appropriate and that the actions the city is taking are consistent with that general plan. We review the capital improvement plan, again for consistency with the general plan, and kind of support the public interest in issues related to planning and development here in Cupertino. One of the things that's, I think, most important about the Planning Commission is that we serve as the first major public hearing for a lot of the big projects that are coming through. So, the disclosure laws mean that often a giant packet for a big project, could be thousands of pages, will appear, on Thursday before the next council meeting. But in almost every case, when that kind of a project is coming through, it would have come first to the Planning Commission. So you had an opportunity to see the staff report, to see the supporting materials, to be able to raise questions and ask about that. And that would normally be happening, 3 to 5 weeks before it would come back here at a minimum. That's, I think, a really important public function, to have that additional visibility and to have the opportunity for the community to participate, ask questions. And one of the other advantages of the Planning Commission is with a shorter agenda than the general agenda of the City Council. We often will be meeting on a big matter like that earlier in the evening. So it's great overall for improvement, and I think that the Planning Commission members that we have today really help enhance that. We have a broad variety of opinions and are very interested in making sure that those are heard in those early hearings. Next slide, please. These items are the things that we've worked on in 2024. There are a mix of policy items. So, for instance, the sixth cycle housing element proposal came through us first for public hearing, and then on to you, along with the zoning maps and amendments to the municipal code. We also saw issues around the fence ordinance and around general commercial zone updates, which you saw, I think, just in your last meeting. Yes. And then there were also projects we looked at. There were developer agreements that were extended for the two big hotel projects here in Cupertino Village and the Anza Hotel. We also had an early look at the Lawrence Mini Conceptual Design Environmental Review. This was, again, as part of the capital improvement plan. This was the first kind of ideas and where generally are we looking at that for compliance with the GP. Then there were some smaller ones, the Kittleton Arcade and exceptions. So we've had a number of sign exceptions and conditional use permits as well. Next slide. Here's what we expect to be doing. The items on the left column are the work plan items that were generated from your council workshop. One of those is to look at objective design standards. Now, this is a big thing, part of the follow-on from the housing element. To look at sign ordinance update. We are particularly noted, aware of that because a number of sign ordinance exceptions have come to the Planning Commission recently. The protected tree list update and Heart of the City. And then there are a number of projects. Normally we won't know about the projects until they've reached a point where they're ready for a hearing. There are formal applications that are kind of in the pipe. In particular, we identify here there are 2 SB 330 plans that have been submitted, 3, and 2 builder's remedy programs. In the case of the SB 330s, there's a state mandated limit on the number of hearings that the city can hold with regard to approval. So again, that function we have of allowing the report to be presented early to the community, again, turns out to be a real big plus here. This is the first time most people would see a SB 330 plan completely in the staff analysis of an SB 330 plan. And I think that's it. If you could advance the slide one more time, I'm pretty sure that was the last slide. Yes. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, David.
Great. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Planning Commission? Vice Mayor Fruin?
David, if I could have you come back up.
Yeah.
Is there any work program item that you wish you had on your plate that isn't currently there?
I think we've actually, over the course of the year, the course of the last calendar year, I think everybody has expressed different items that we'd be interested in working on. One of them was we actually have a lot of hearings that have to do with second story additions and balconies, and we'd love to take that on. I think that I absolutely understand why the building code sits as it does, that it does tend to cause issues. But I think we've covered a lot of the other items. So personally for me, that would be a big one. I think that there were discussions around, one of our goals is how do we enhance the financial health of the city and vitality of the city. And I think that the interesting question there is, are there things that can be, are there objective standards that could be applied to that in making those sorts of decisions as to whether to approve a project or not? I mean, just as an example, there was a split decision on the Kittleton Arcade about, is this what we want here? And, I think that would be actually an area that would be interesting to explore and one that can help us make help us encourage the things we want to encourage here, and maybe discourage the things we don't want to have see so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sustainability Commission.
Hello. Can we have the presentation? Good evening, everybody. Mayor Mohan, Vice Mayor Fruin, Councillor Chow, Councillor Wei, and Councillor Moore. City Manager, City Staff, and the residents of Cupertino. My name is Sonali Padgaonkar. I am a Sustainability Chair for this year, and I'm very happy to present our progress report this evening. Sustainability Commission, as you see, is comprises of 5 people. I am the chair this year. We have Vice Chair Susan Hanson, Commissioner Connie Yang, Commissioner Alex Fong, and Commissioner Steve Poon. Sustainability Commission is very young as compared to other commissions. It's established only 8 years ago. And actually, for our first 3 commissioners termed up this year, and we have 3 new ones. Connie Young, who is just finished her undergrad and joined our commission, and I'm very happy to see the young faces in our commission who are ready to actually serve the community. Me and Commissioner Poon are in our 3rd year this year actually. Our commission meets every quarter in January, April, July and October on 3rd Thursday of the month. Yeah, next slide, thank you. As everybody knows, State of California has published carbon neutrality guidelines for all the cities. And in Cupertino, we have, our goal is to have carbon neutrality by 2040. And for that, our what Sustainability Commission is asked to do is provide expertise and guidance on major policies and programs related to Climate Action Plan, which is actually about the carbon neutrality. And it is comprising of following topics. They are pretty self-explanatory. So greenhouse gas emission reduction, water conservation, renewable energy, energy efficiency, waste management, and urban forestry. So we try to get the expertise and try to guide the council on these particular topics. Next slide, please. We also, in addition to this, we also focus on making Cupertino the leader in sustainability. We have a big program which is outreach to the community. The carbon neutrality cannot be reached without the support of the residents. So we are doing community engagement. We are also driving awareness and behavior change in the general community. We are looking for innovative solutions for recycling waste and stuff like that. And we support resilience and adaptation. Next slide, please. So this is what we have done this year. The new construction building REACH code. So the REACH code to follow for all the new constructions, which will allow us to reach our carbon neutrality goal. And we have focused on outreach, community outreach this year. We have already tabled at Fall Festival. Last Saturday, I was a part of tabling at Diwali Mela. We also plan to table at a bike festival. And as you know, our department actually hosts the Earth Day Festival, which is attended by a lot of people, and it actually displays a lot of things which you can use for green. Next slide, please. What we plan on doing, basically our main focus, as I said, is implementation of CAP measure, and for that we do following stuff. Examples are, we will be actually doing a REACH code for existing building energy ordinance. We are actually negotiating garbage post collection service for our recycling material. Analyzing additional EV charger locations, some small off-road equipment like lawnmower and all which use gas, regulations around that, and we will continue to do community outreach effort. And next slide. This is a fun picture when we tabled. It's Jasmine and Steven, Alex and me. We tabled at Fall Festival. Next picture. Next slide. Thank you. Yes, so finally I thank my fellow commissioners and our sustainability staff, Ursula, who is here. And they have been working diligently to achieve Cupertino City's goal in sustainability. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Councilmember Chow had a question for you.
Yeah, thank you for all the good work that you do in the community outreach. So I think a big effort at the county level last year and this year is organic waste recycling, but that really requires a lot of cooperation from everyone. But I didn't see that in your what we've done? Or
Presentation.
yeah. So is there any plan for doing outreach for that?
Yes, so the outreach, we have games in the outreach in which we kind of demonstrate the community how to do the recycling of organic waste also. Earth Day also has the recycling, the compost and all. So there are vendors who come on Earth Day which show actually how to do compost at home and do organic waste. This year actually Stephen is one of the person who is going to do the community outreach for in schools to show them how to actually recycle organic waste in schools also.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything specific you will like to see?
That's great, thank you. And I think school lunch has a lot of waste, so if we, not only organic, also recyclable. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to go next to Councilmember Wei. You had your hand up.
For a question?
Yes, just a minute. For you, Sonali.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Wait.
Yes, actually, my question has been answered already. I do believe our school is a prime place for sustainability education. So our high school students and our CUSD students can really learn at a young age as sustainability can change our future. So I already got the answers from commissioners. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei. We have Vice Mayor Fruin, and
So I'll put to you the same question that I put to your colleague from the Planning Commission. Is there anything that is missing from your work program that you wish were there?
So I wish for more collaboration, and I think I talked to Ms. Mayor Mohan last time when we meet in the commissioners meeting. I think that we little bit work in silo, and this is my personal opinion. So not the commission's opinion, but we work in silo, and we actually need to kind of work with other commissions. Like for example, Planning Commission, we need to see like when they are approving a building, is that like a sustainable building, or what kind of things they are going to do for sustainability. So there is a process for that. Then also we want to work with Teen Commission, where we can ask them what kind of help they can provide for or what kind of things we can teach them to actually do more outreach. As we said, the outreach is the most important thing to achieve the neutrality goal for us. So collaboration, I think, is a key role. Collaborating with the block leaders in Cupertino has a great program of block leaders, which is very good if we can reach out to block leaders and the block leaders reach out to their community. Because when I'm doing the tabling and outreach, so many people come to me and they talk about, they want to know what is the best way of helping. And sometimes I think that the information is not there for them, easily available. So that is a thing that we want to provide. And as Council Member Wei said, we need to catch them young. So we need to actually work with CUSD and FUSHD to get this going as a process. So not like once in a year thing. Like couple of years ago, Victoria and I, we went to Kennedy Middle School and we did like one day with the science teacher Susan, who is actually now one of our sustainability commissioner. But it needs to be integrated as a program in school.
thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Okay. Thank you for the report, Sonali. I have a little bit of feedback and a question. I was wondering how many boba shops are allowing cups from home? I did notice there was a 311 ticket from a customer who was wanting a shop that they frequent to allow them to bring a cup from home, and they were having difficulty with that. So has there been some kind of outreach and data collection on this?
I'm going to ask Ursula, but I can tell you my personal experience. So my kids actually bought a glass bottle on Earth Day to take it to boba shop, because they always, once a week, they go to boba shop. But the boba person actually made the boba in a plastic and then they just pour it into the glass one. So my kids are not taking straws anymore from there, and we have straws at home. So they come home and drink it. So that's the only change we did. But yeah. Yeah, sure.
The only thing I would add is staff is working on continued outreach on our single-use plastics ordinance. It's an ever-evolving process, but we do plan to work more with the boba shop. So.
Okay, thank you. And Sonali, that's pretty much what I was reading, is that they put it in a single-use plastic cup, and it would seem that they could put it into a container like a milkshake and then just pour it into your glass and have it work that way. But thank you for trying, and hopefully we'll get a little bit better within the next year and find some solution to that issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know we recently approved the REACH code amendments, and I know that your commission worked closely with staff, so thank you for that, and it was a good solution. So thank you, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Are there any postponements and orders of the day, Madam City Manager?
No, Mayor.
All right. Okay, we will move to oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for people wishing to address the council on any matter that's within the jurisdiction of the council and not on the agenda for discussion. The total time for oral communication is ordinarily limited to 1 hour, and individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes for the most part. Madam City Clerk, how many cards do we have?
Yes, Mayor, I have 6 requests to speak from Community Hall. I see 3 hands raised virtually, and that takes us to 27 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes per speaker then.
Okay, and just a reminder, anyone wishing to comment on this item, please have your hand raised or your speaker card submitted in the next 9 minutes. And Councilmember Way, I will rely on you to notify me of any members of the public wishing to speak from that teleconference location. Okay, so first we have Dennis Whitaker, followed by Ying Sosik, followed by Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Dennis.
My name is Dennis Whitaker, a proud 50-year resident of Cupertino. Tonight I am representing 2 veterans organizations and requesting that our City Council formally recognize the 2 upcoming events. The first one, the Cupertino Veterans Memorial Foundation, under the leadership of Lieutenant Colonel John Swenson, is having our annual Veterans Day ceremony at the Cupertino Veterans Memorial at Memorial Park on November the 11th at 11 o'clock. This year, the celebration is focusing on women in the military. We invite our City Council, staff, and area residents to attend to honor not only our veterans, but our first responders. Remember that our Veterans Memorial came about because of a Monte Vista High School graduate coming to a City Council meeting and requesting the city do some sort of honor recognition of one of Cupertino's residents, Matthew Axelson, a Navy SEAL who was killed in Afghanistan during Operation Red Wing. Thanks to Mayor Sandy James and Matt's parents, Donna and Corky Axelson, and a special committee, the memorial became a reality. Please come and join and visit the website of the Cupertino Veterans Memorial Foundation. Number 2, I'm putting down, and I've left some flyers in the back room. Fortunately, Liang and Kitty came last year, is to the second event on December 14th this year. It's our Wreaths Across America. Our American Legion Post 642 is sponsoring it again at the Gate of Heaven Cemetery. This event is being celebrated across the nation, as last year some 4,400 cemeteries participated. This event is solemn and beautiful, with wreaths being manufactured and brought across the nation and laid on veterans' grave sites together with flags. It is a totally beautiful event. I wish to invite all of you, the City Council, the staff, and all of the residents area of Cupertino to come. Our website is Wreaths Across America, www.wreathsacrossamerica.org, and you can find our location on there. And I'm leaving several flyers out for you on the entry hall. Thank you very much, and thank you for not zapping me this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Next we have Ying Sosik, followed by Jennifer Griffin, followed by Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Ying.
Hi. Ying Sosik. I live on Linda Vista Drive, and I've spoken here several times before regarding the development on Evelich Court and also Vista Heights. So as you recall, there's been a large petition that's been submitted to the city, and we've had a memo from the city attorney. Thank you for that. As a sign that somebody's listening on the other side, is very, very reassuring. So what is missing is we still feel that we need to hear from you all in some sort of a formal thing. Call it a hearing, call it a study session, call it a whatever, because it affects the lives of a lot of people, and we shouldn't hear this secondhand around next door or from the builder. We feel that it is our city elected body, that you all owe the citizens a formal explanation, and also to help illuminate a way to solving the problem or something. So hopefully you can help to make that happen. It's worth pointing out there's a lot of information out there, there's a lot of misinformation out there. But really, in our heart of hearts, all of us who live there just want to see this issue resolved, right? So we just want to rise above how we got here, just work together to get us into some place where we can all live with, right? As we know, a good solution is probably a solution that nobody likes 100% completely, right? So, I myself, I am not anti-development. Right, I understand that our future, we're all vested in the development of California. We're all vested in people being able to live here and afford to live here. That said, within that framework, it needs to be, it's a party of a lot of people. It shouldn't just be decided above us, below us, around us, without us in the process. So again, I just come back to say, let's dispense with what happened in the past. Let's work together to have a solution forward, and that could be, achieved with a hearing, with a study session, with something, right? So that's my ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Ying. Next we have Jennifer Griffin, followed by Peggy Griffin, followed by Jean Bedord. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, City Council. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I wanted to talk tonight about the potential loss of retail in Cupertino along Stevens Creek Boulevard. I spoke about this before at a previous City Council meeting, and I have driven around and looked at the 3 to 4 sites that are potentially, one of them started out as a builder's remedy, but I think most of them now are SB 330s. And they are active retail that are going to be going to housing. When I first moved here in the 80s in Cupertino, I could do most of my shopping in town. We had everything I needed. Now I would say about only 1/4 of the shopping that I do is in Cupertino, because all of the retail has been lost or gone off to different cities. I think that, in fact, I was down by our Target today looking at the Pizza Hut site with the Staples, and then the one that has the Panera Bread that is supposed to be going to housing. Now, I remember when previous Mayor Lowenthal, this was probably 14 years ago, fought hard to get that Panera Bread open. We spent hours setting up the parking in there. I mean, this is what our city council did then. We worked through the ins and outs, and I don't regret it. I used to go to the Good Earth restaurant there many, many years ago. In fact, right after I met my husband, we went to the Good Earth, and we saw a lot of residents of Cupertino that I hadn't seen since I was in high school. So I don't understand why we are getting rid of active retail to lose it forever for housing. Now, you know that I have great problems with the RHNA numbers, and as Mayor Matt Mahan called Sacramento math, this was in last week on TV, but I just cannot condone taking active retail. The other one is the falafel shop at Idlewild Shopping Center down by where Sears was on Stevens Creek Boulevard across the street. We are going to lose that forever. I'm going to have to do all of my shopping outside of Cupertino. Why do these sites have to be taken apart and all they become is housing? Why can't you split part of it? This is my problem with the housing element, Sacramento, and I will tell you, when I am voting in the next couple of days, I am not voting for anyone or anything that is pushing the housing element. I don't want to lose that retail in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next we have Peggy Griffin, followed by Jean Bedord, followed by Lisa Warren.
Do you want to speak now? Just a second. Vice Mayor Fruin, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, if the city manager could opine quickly, the two applications that were just referenced arose under the general plan as they were before the current housing element was enacted, correct?
The two projects were the Panera project and also the Pizza Hut project. That is correct.
Okay.
Actually,
Councilmember
I'll ask
Chow?
for a memo later. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Go ahead, Peggy.
I'd like to use the slide overhead in a minute. I want to talk about, as a Cupertino resident, how important it is to vote. That your vote will count and it will impact you directly. Now, if you just turned 18 or you just became a naturalized citizen or you moved into California from another state, the ballot can be overwhelming. In this year's ballot, Card A is for people. You vote for president. You vote for city council. You may not know all these people, but you know some of them, and you have a vote. Express it. Card B is propositions. Those are changes to laws. They're bonds, and there are 10 of them. 5 of these are bonds. And it goes to Card C, which is propositions. All the propositions are yes, no. That's what you decide. And on the last page, the back of, and they all have front and a back, Card C has CUSD, our schools. They have a bond measure. You vote yes or no. A lot of people don't know what a bond is. A bond is another name for a tax, but it's a different kind of tax. It lasts 30 to 40 years. So if you vote yes now, it won't be done, let's say, for 40 years. If you're 20 years old, that bond won't be paid off till you're 60. If your parents vote for the bond and they're 60, you probably, as a child, will inherit the property, and therefore you will inherit their property tax. So I'm not saying vote no or yes, I'm saying think about it and realize what the impact is of voting. And pick a few. It's overwhelming. You don't have to vote for everything all at once. You can gradually get into voting, but don't be scared. Vote for your city council, vote for your president, vote for what you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Next we have Jean Bedord, followed by Lisa Warren, followed by Luis Sidati. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan, council members, and a particularly warm welcome to our Councilwoman Hung Wei. We've missed your smile. My name is Jean Bedord, and I am a Cupertino resident. I'm here tonight to make council and the public aware that a city council candidate, Ray Wong, has threatened to sue me over a post on Nextdoor. This is a violation of my free speech, as well as an attempt to intimidate me. You should have received copies of his
missive to me, as well as my lawyer's response. This is a pattern of misbehavior by this former planning commissioner. He has threatened a Sunnyvale City Council member, a local attorney, and a member of the community. For the City Council member seeking re-election, I strongly suggest you distance yourself from Ray Wong. The Majority Council wisely removed him from the Planning Commission. Cupertino does not need another litigious person on council or the commissions. There have been too many lawsuits already, in particular, those violating free speech. And this behavior needs to stop. We don't need electeds who harass the community and who infringe on free speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Next, we have Lisa Warren, followed by Luis Sedati, followed by Claudio Bono. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I just would like to encourage people to attend the in-person once-a-month mayor chats. They're currently being held on the second Monday of the month, and the locations vary. They're typically at 5 p.m., so hopefully many of you can make it. These gatherings they often begin with the mayor giving updates on things of interest in a variety of categories. Then attendees, not always residents, have the chance to comment or ask questions about additional subjects. Yesterday evening, there were approximately 25 people in attendance at the mayor chat, and we heard some interesting things from residents, and I want to just give a few examples so people know what they might be able to say or hear or learn at these events. What you're not just given 3 minutes to speak and you actually can have an exchange. Sometimes it's not very calm, but sometimes it is. So yesterday we heard some interesting things, one being a pleasant self-introduction from a new church pastor who made himself available for the city to reach out to in the event that the city finds that they have something that he and the church can potentially help with. He was offering conversation. There was a serious concern about some questionable behavior about a senior staff member and a request for answers about how that could be handled. There was a resident request to have a public discussion about street lighting within city boundaries. There was a very recent wild story about a former mayor and if there is action that can be taken. And there was a shocking and incorrect statement from a CUSD school board member who is a Cupertino resident. So that's just a sampling of what you may have an opportunity to hear or speak about. And I really do encourage you to come. I'm grateful the mayor does it. I know Councilmember Chow started this years ago, and they were always well attended and good questions and learning went on. So that's what I've got. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Luis Sedati, followed by Claudio Bono, and then we will move to those requesting to speak virtually. Welcome, Luis.
Good evening. I wasn't planning to attend the meeting tonight because I've been so busy canvassing on the election for progress on our economic development and to actually develop the empty 52-acre lot, which is the legacy of Better Cupertino. But I do want to say good evening to our council members, as well as Hung Wei. I wanted to be here just to say welcome back. It's terrific to see you and to see that you have the energy and the presence of mind, and you're here to fight for our city again. Thank you. You have served our community for well over a decade. You were first in the school district as a board member for 8 years, then 4 years in the city council, including as mayor. You are full of wisdom and experience and have been inclusive and collaborative in your governance of Cupertino. I will hope you don't get upset when I say you look a little bit a little bit more weathered and experienced from your 10 years of fighting so hard for Cupertino. But I welcome you back with open arms, and I hope all the residents in Cupertino appreciate all that you have done over the last decade to make our city a great city. I also applaud you for all that you have, other things you have done, including making the mayor position a one-year position to enable the position to rotate, because you have never been for grandstanding, standing in front of the podium and camera, talking about yourself ad nauseum. You purposely made the position to rotate to give other people a chance, and you always spoke the truth with consideration for the greater good for all the residents, not just the ones in Better Cupertino. On a different topic, I want to commend the city for reaching out to the residents with the staff and some council members meeting with residents on Linda Vista Drive, as well as other residents. I've seen a lot of communication going on behind the scenes, and they have been very fruitful communications. And now, as a result of those behind the scenes communications, some residents are actively reaching out to the developer regarding their specific asks on their specific streets. And I think that is a very fruitful and positive direction for the residents to get what they want from the people that are actually building the property. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. Next we have Claudio Bono. Welcome, Claudio.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan, Vice Mayor Fruin, council members, city staff, everybody. Hello. I'm sorry I'm taking this little time. I'm trying to be a little bit selfish for once. That's very good. I'm on behalf of the silent minority here in Cupertino. I want to give a warm welcome back to Council Member Way. We love you. I may be a candidate, but I'm actually human. I have a heart, and we miss you. We can't wait to see you back here. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. And next we will move to those wishing to speak virtually. There were 8 hands raised before the 9-minute cutoff, although one person has fallen off. If you raise your hand again, I will call on you. So we have R. Wong, followed by San R, followed by Tracy K. Welcome, R.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Good evening, City Council and Cupertino residents. I'm Ray Wong. As you know, Cupertino is an amazing city. I've always thought of our residents as a group that's inclusive, open-minded, and just. Civic dialogue is about the issues and how the community should be treated and represented. Our publicly elected representatives should be listening to voters, not trying to pull the wool over their eyes. I've enjoyed meeting thousands of residents over the past few months. As residents, we are worried about public safety and wondering why this current majority council didn't stand up and support the residents with formal consideration of safety-oriented legislation and measures that affect our public safety. Prior council majority did that work. As residents, we want to know if our tax dollars are well managed, and we were surprised that we found $64 million in a non-interest bearing checking account through a public records request. I made that public records request. We need better procurement procedures and more qualified members on the audit committee. As residents, we're concerned about public lands being sold off in the name of more housing at places like Blackberry Farm and the Sports Center. Even basic infrastructure like our water pipes have been constantly and quietly eyeballed. Rather than running away from building up our capabilities, we should be running towards being able to deliver innovative and well-considered services. We need to make sure our council does not give away our much public resources and allow the elimination of them for the profit of a few. Recently, the city itself removed properly placed campaign signs without following its own legal requirement. This is astounding and unprecedented. It is deeply concerning to see what has happened to our government. And the personal political smear is a reflection of the current quality of that majority governance. We really need to get back to thinking and listening through the issues if we're being sincere about wanting to solve problems. Let's take housing. It's a serious issue, but we're not going to address the problem associated with it or any other issue by contaminating our evaluative process with money worship above critical thinking, or even more basically, common sense. Believe me, I'm deeply involved in technology and financial markets in my profession, and we must, as a group together, elevate, not punish, diligence and thinking. That's how everyone gets success. City Hall's focus should be on inviting dialogue and transparency, not shutting it down. It should be on intelligent discussions with the community, reading the materials, and resolving the issues by thinking, because maneuvering and smear are not workable governing methods, and we have seen these for the past 2 years. We have a lot of big issues ahead of us. I invite you to join us in crafting this vision for Cupertino. I truly hope that we do a better job in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, R. Next we have Sanar, followed by Tracy K., followed by Vikram Saxena. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan and council members. I'm glad to see Council Member Hung Wei on the video, and I hope she's on a path to recovery and wish her good health. I would like to address our residents of the city today to make sure they understand that there is a lot of misinformation that is being put out there on the topic of candidates for council. What residents need to understand is when you see attacks that go back 21 years, it tells you that they have nothing else to talk about. When an entire conversation is about what someone did 21 years ago, allegedly, the conversation is not about the issues. And that is because the candidates and the incumbents on the majority side have done nothing for the residents of Cupertino. They have been focused on niche groups. They have been focused on people that are potential future residents, but not current residents. And on meeting after meeting, which is recorded and residents can watch, they have seen the pleas of current residents of Cupertino fall on deaf ears. We see the same in the mayor's meetings. Feedback is brushed off. Residents are asked to wait till the very end. The mayor runs the clock, giving time to CUSD to speak at a mayor's chai. CUSD has its own meeting. Please, let's not play these games. What we are seeing right now is 2 years of inaction by this council majority now being hidden under a cover of misinformation. And our residents are smart enough to look beyond that. Let's have a conversation on the real issues. This council majority, as well as the candidates supported by this council majority, want to spend $80 million or $50 million, whatever the number may be, on a new city hall that we don't need. They want to participate in public-private partnerships, giving our public lands away to developers in exchange for potential reductions in costs of a city hall. They want to purchase a 40-year plus office building and do that in closed communications. No residents have been able to see what is going on this so-called negotiation for an office building. They approved a spend on $83 million on the Memorial Park. 65% of the trees at Memorial Park are at risk of being taken down. Wasteful spending has reached a new high under this council, and none of those issues are things that they want to talk about. What they want to talk about is a 21-year-old issue, which we will not comment on here because there's enough conversation outside of that. I would like to request residents to please see through this, ask the hard questions on the issues, ask the candidates what they stand for. When someone says they're going to...
Thank you. That is your time. Next we have Vikram Saxena, followed by Sashi Begor, followed by Ava Chow. And Tracy K., you lowered your hand, but if you did wish to speak, you may raise your hand, and I will call on you. Welcome, Vikram.
Hi. First of all, it's nice to see you, Councilperson Wei. Hope you get better soon. I think I'm going to speak on two topics. The first one is the sign removal by the city staff. The signs were removed and disposed of against the city code. I think the city should investigate who instructed the staff to remove the signs. And the city should understand why the instructions were given and whether there was a deeper conspiracy behind this. The second topic is about the attack by a couple of former mayors on City Council candidate Ray Wang. Ray is a media personality who appears on global news channels like Bloomberg, CNBC, Fox Business regularly. he gets invited to WEF at Davos to speak. These businesses conduct deep background checks before they invite a panelist regularly. So to assume that any of those allegations have any substance is wrong. Furthermore, the continuous attempts to highlight charges which were dismissed to tarnish Ray's reputation is an abuse of our justice systems. Ray was targeted by developers because he was objecting to the use of non-potable water in areas where children could drink it, not realizing it was recycled and not fit for human consumption. Finding an alternate way to dispose of the water would have reduced the builder's profits. The person who accused Ray was close to developers and some years later was fined by the FPPC for abusing her role as a vice mayor to lobby for a local development. I'm going to play a video by two-time Redwood City Council person who was in the council during that period, and he was witness to the entire drama as part of the council, describing how Ray stood up to the harassment to defend residents.
I'm so glad Ray Wayne is running for city council. I remember how he worked with our community when I was in office, and cities have some competing priorities and interests. It takes a pretty strong and astute person to make a great council member. Well, Ray's got what it takes. He really cares about the residents, and he cares about doing the right thing. So he's not going to be afraid to be attacked for being too resident focused. And as a business person, he knows when it's time to compromise, and then how to bring everybody together for the win-win. These are the skills that make a great city council member. You got Ray Wayne.
I would end with the request to the people who are attacking Ray to focus on the real issues which affect the city instead of creating a false impression using events which have no basis just because you have a lot of special interest money and people to create that narrative. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram. And next we have Sashi Bagor, followed by Ava Chow, followed by caller 3560. Welcome, Sashi.
Excuse me.
Hello.
Excuse me, Sashi, if you could just, we'll start you over again. Mayor, so I think we're out of our 30 minutes. Do you intend to waive the rules to allow the remaining speakers to continue before we move on to the action calendar?
How many speakers do we have, Madam City Clerk?
5 speakers, 15 minutes total.
Yeah, yes, I think we should continue.
Okay, Sashi, you may continue, please.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was only going to talk about one topic, but I've added a couple different things. First of all, I would like to start by saying it's a great pleasure to see Councilmember Hung Wei up on the screen here. It's lovely. I hope you're well on your way to getting better. We wish you all the best, and we're all in the city praying for your help. Before I come to the topic that I really wanted to talk about, I'd like to make a couple of comments on what previous residents have said. The first one was Jean Bedard mentioned that we should make sure that we have candidates on the city council that will prevent our city from being sued. I 100% agree with her. She couldn't have, said anything better. That's why I think we should think twice before we vote for candidate Rod Singhs. It turns out that the city got sued twice because of him. And off late, and this is information in the public media, and off late we had to pay $8,000 again. This was as recently as 1922. We're not talking, 2022. We're not talking about something 20 years ago. Second point I want to make is it's not normal for council members to stop oral communication and provide feedback. I was just curious why the vice mayor tried to do something right now. Anyway, final point, which was really the point I came to make, is it's really concerning to me that the signs of only Kitty and Ray were removed by the city. I really want to know who authorized it, I know you are going to compensate them, but then again, that is taxpayer money. I don't want my money to be spent over someone else's mistake. Yes, please compensate them, but whoever authorized it, that has to be investigated. That person's name has to come out. We also need to have that person pay for the signs. It shouldn't be the taxpayers. We did not ask for it to be removed. They were legally placed there. Secondly, I think the city has to offer an apology on not just to the candidate, but also on the city website saying they did that for whatever reason and that an investigation is happening. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sashi. And next we have Ava Chow, followed by caller 3560, followed by Seema Linskog. Welcome, Ava.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ava Chow. I heard that Councilmember Hung Wei is coming online tonight, and I want to extend a personal welcome back to our city. I think a lot of us are very happy to see you back in the public space. The other reason I am here tonight to talk about is Cupertino Union School District is having a Measure Z bond that is coming on to our November elections. Passing Measure Z, the bond measure allows USD to continue funding these improvements by extending the existing tax rate, an average of less than $21 per $100,000 of assessed property value, ensuring that our schools receive the necessary renovations without any additional financial burden on property owners. So basically, whatever the current tax rate that we are paying for the bond that we have had in past, we are planning on extending it. Measure Z also makes CUSD eligible for state matching funds. This allows the district to stretch local dollars even further to complete necessary projects. These funds will be dedicated solely to school improvements and cannot be taken by the state or used for administrators' salaries or pensions. Additionally, strict oversight, including a citizens oversight committee and independent audit, ensures transparency and accountability in how the funds are spent. Ultimately, Measure Z is about investing in the future of our schools and community, quality facilities, improve educational outcomes, which benefit students and families, strengthen neighborhoods, and support property values. By voting Measure Z, we can keep our schools competitive, safe, and prepared for future generations of our students. We have had many school board meetings in discussion of this. Every single one of our school board members in CUSD has voted for it and has endorsed it. To find out more information, people can go to Z, the letter Z, the number 4, CUSD.org for the website for more information. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ava. And next we have caller 3560, followed by Seema Linskog, followed by Tracy K. Welcome, caller 3560.
Hi, good evening. 3560, this is Rhoda Fry speaking. And I wanted to concur with Jennifer Griffin, who was talking about losing retail. We really need our retail. We are going to be going down to about $10 million a year in sales tax revenue, and that's down from an average of about 27 million. There's just no way we're going to get back to where we used to be because essentially the city was getting 65 cents coming to it for every $100 of Apple purchases made online in the state of California. We're not going to get that back there. We got to be careful with our money. And you know, I will address this. I was going to talk about misinformation about money moving forward, but I also really wanted to address what Ms. Bedore was talking about this evening. And you know, she's been brought up ancient, frivolous, politically motivated lawsuits, and at the same time, she wrote a newsletter. And again, I'm going to refer to what Sashi was speaking about earlier. where Cal City's executive director sued multiple cities. And the top person on that complaint, it was a threat to sue, was that Rod Stinks had told the executive director that, she didn't need health insurance because she could get it from her husband. Now, frankly, if somebody said that to me, I would be absolutely outraged. Would I sue? I don't know. But anyway, she did. There was to be fair, there was a number of other issues on that. But when Jean Bedord reported it, she never mentioned the Rod Stinks debacle of the just terrible things that she was saying. And I also say, that I have been putting factual things online and next door over the years. And Ms. Bedord has also made attacks on me. My friends have suggested I go after her for defamation, which I have not. But we need to let's just stop this for once. Now, I want to get on to quickly regarding economic development at Valco. It's really there's two different things. We got to build it. Yes. Is it economic development? Probably not. Look, we've been told that we're getting $43 million coming in fees. Fees is not income. Okay. It's not the $43 million that is coming in is going to pay for the infrastructure that Valco is going to create. In fact, it's not going to be enough to cover it all. So please don't think that when developers pay fees that it's income. It isn't. It's actually a net negative. And because we are facing a 10-year deficit, we need to be real.
Thank you, Rhoda. That is your time. Next, we have Seema Lindskog, followed by Tracy K. Welcome, Seema.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So first of all, I wanted to say welcome back to Hung. It's really nice to see your smiling face. You look healthy and happy, and I'm very happy to see you looking so healthy, and welcome you back. I wasn't going to speak today, but considering that all these speakers before me decided to make political speeches, I thought I should comment a little bit about this. So about Ray Wong, it's really interesting. There's a strong parallel of national politics to see a public figure who's dismissing the accusations of a woman for which he pleaded no contest. Many women can relate to this, sadly. So being a public figure doesn't make you innocent of charges, as we've seen with former President Trump. And as a reminder also, some of the harassment accusations against Mr. Wong are from 2019, 2022, and as recently as last week. And frankly, speaking of parallels, honestly, better Cupertino candidates and supporters, you guys are just plain weird. Residents of Cupertino are tired of the negativity, the accusations, the grievances, the weird conspiracy theories, and the useless lawsuits that go nowhere and waste our city's tax dollars. We're done. We want council members who are positive and collaborative and know how to partner with companies, county officials, other community leaders to actually get stuff done and create relationships and get results. We want to move forward and do something useful with our lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Seema. Next, we have Tracy K. Welcome, Tracy. Oh, there. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much. I want to comment tonight, first from the one from Jean Bedord. Perhaps if you stopped spreading lies about good, hardworking people, you wouldn't face the lawsuit you are complaining about. This lawsuit appears to be entirely the product of your own action. To expect that you can mislead the public during election season without any repercussions. It is not right to attempt to manipulate voters this way. I also wanted to respond to Seema. Are we in the business of accusing people we don't agree with of harassment? That seems to be the only issue that I see so far, is some people don't agree, and apparently it becomes harassment. Cupertino, from my standpoint, is very lucky to have such a successful businessman like Ray taking the time out of his busy career to help our city. Early on, I remember someone asking Ray why for Cupertino City Council. He said he wanted to help fix some of the problems Cupertino faces. And that is all people need to know about Ray. He's not running for himself. He has enough titles. He's purely running out of a generosity to contribute his own time out of his busy career as a tech CEO to help fix the many issues Cupertino faces, from budget deficit to growth and development. And a few things people should know. Ray Wong will not trade away our City Hall development opponents tried to do. Ray Wong will not support closing our public schools the way some members of the current people sitting on this dais did. Ray Wong will not remove 1,300 housing units from our housing element and force the city to scramble for more units the way the current council majority did. What Ray Wong will do is bring positive change to Cupertino by restoring resident input to major decisions, from the future of our roads to developments impacting our neighborhoods, helping to revitalize our city by growing our retail base and not simply letting everything turn into office space. So I just ask the public tonight, please not take everything that they are seeing right now at face value and look at the facts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. And Mayor, no additional requests to speak on this item?
Okay. Okay, so that ends the oral communication section of today's agenda. Thank you to all those who called in or who participated in person. Just for everyone's information, and Madam City Manager, maybe you can confirm this, there is a study session on housing that's coming up next week.
There's a study session for the City Council on the recent housing laws and how this would apply to processing of the development application. It's tentatively scheduled for next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Okay, so those of us who have questions about all the different intricacies of housing should be able to attend this and get most of the questions answered. So thank you for that. Okay. Councilmember Chow, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think two speakers mentioned the retails that we are losing on 3 or 4 sites on Stevens Creek. But the heart of the city has a requirement of 75% frontage is retail. So I would like a memo to inform us why the 2 SB 330 projects do not have to comply with the current heart of a city specific plan, and why the buildings remedy projects do not have to comply with that, so we can keep continuous retail frontage. Can we get a memo on that?
I can advise council on that. Yes, I don't know if it merits a full entire memo, but yeah.
Thank you. And I think I would like some information on. So we all have freedom of speech, but if someone writes false information or defame others with false accusation on social media or any blog post, could they be sued?
I think that's a private matter that's outside the city council's jurisdiction.
It's a legal issue.
It is a legal issue, but it's outside of the city council's jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. My friend, I know people have been sued for that, so just be careful.
Okay, let's move on to the consent calendar. And Madam City Manager, have any items been pulled off the consent calendar?
No, Mayor.
Okay. All right. So before we, are there any comments from the public on the consent calendar items?
Yes, Mayor. I have one request to speak from Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff. I want to talk about the accounts payables. In it, and I don't remember which one it is of the 4, it lists San Jose Water. We pay for water for all our parks. And it's come to me, and also Rhoda found it too, that like Memorial Park, we pay less water for Memorial Park, which has grass, we put grass in it, than some of the smaller parks, which to me would indicate that maybe we should be monitoring the water. And when this happens, We should go out and check the sprinklers, check for leaks. Water's becoming expensive, and this is one way that the city can save money, possibly by installing some kind of software monitoring that doesn't alert or something. I'd like you to consider it. Maybe under sustainability, because we want to conserve water and we want to conserve our funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And Mayor, I see no additional requests to speak on the consent calendar items.
Thank you. Let's bring it back to council. Is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar, items 3, 4, and 5?
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Moore?
Moore, second.
Right. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. Let's vote by lights, please.
No.
Mayor,
Oh,
if, would you like a roll call vote, Mayor?
Oh, we have to do roll calls. Okay.
Councilmember Chow?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Aye.
Mayor Mohan?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Okay, so we are done with the consent calendar. Let's move on to, there are no public hearings. The study session is next on the agenda. And this is a study session on unhoused services and programs. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a team of experts to guide you through this topic. The Interim Assistant City Manager, Tina Kapoor, and Tom Chin, and we also have a representative from the county will be here to provide the information on this item. Go for it, Tina.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tina Kapoor, Interim Assistant City Manager, and tonight we're discussing the unhoused services and programs. With the agenda packet, you have the staff report. There's a couple of presentations and also a supplemental memo that was issued yesterday answering some of the questions from Council. And tonight we're really hoping to have a discussion, keeping in mind, that this is a complex issue. There's no simple or easy solutions. And the scale of this issue in our city can vary when compared to other jurisdictions. Speaking of which, we do have some comparative data that we're going to share tonight and also provide an overview of the city's current process and of course highlight the partnerships that we heavily rely on. And as outlined in the staff report, there will be two options for you to consider tonight. Continue what we're doing now or develop a scope for future policy development around this issue. And here to present this information today is Tom Chin, our emergency manager, and also KJ Kaminsky, acting director of Office of Supportive Housing for Santa Clara County. And I want to thank Council for your continued support of staff's efforts around this deeply complex issue. And now I will turn it over to Tom and KJ, and we'll be available for questions after.
Thank you, Tina. Good evening. Good evening, City Council Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. It's my pleasure to present to you the study session on unhoused services and programs. I'm joined again, as Tina mentioned, with KJ Kaminsky, Acting Director of the Office of Supportive Housing. We'll go through our city's presentation first, and then KJ will follow us up. So tonight, I'll review the recommended actions, the current status of unhoused individuals in Cupertino. I'll review our city's unhoused task force. I'll briefly discuss this countywide service model, and KJ will then follow up in more detail. Finally, we'll review local jurisdictions that have implemented programs recently, and we'll provide those potential options forward. We've provided two recommended actions that detailed in the staff report. The first is to continue the current model based on the city's unhoused task force with partnerships with the County of Santa Clara. And alternatively, we've offered an option to develop an encampment management policy as a part of the work program by evaluating examples from other Bay Area jurisdictions and incorporating best practices for City Council review. There have been several legal decisions that have impacted unhoused services specific to encampments on city property. I'll defer those any specific questions to our city attorney, Chris Jensen, to answer those. But on the screen, you'll see data from the past 3 point-in-time counts. The point-in-time count is a semi-annual survey that provides a snapshot of the number of sheltered and unsheltered homeless individuals within the city on a designated day in January. This count is a part of a national initiative led by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. The data from the PIT count is instrumental in understanding the extent of homelessness, identifying trends, assessing needs, and evaluating the effectiveness of interventions. The PIT count and subsequent reports show that the city of Cupertino has had consistently fewer homeless individuals than nearby cities. And the semi-annual PIT count highlights the city's ongoing efforts with a significant decrease from 159 in 2019 to 48 in 2023. In 2020, the city of Cupertino established the Unhoused Task Force, which convenes representatives from multiple city departments to address homelessness-related issues as they arise. This cross-agency, multi-sector task force operates without a dedicated budget, relying on the collaboration and expertise of staff and department resources. On December 15, 2020, the City Council adopted a resolution endorsing the Santa Clara County Community Plan to End Homelessness 2020 to 2025. And this task force supports Strategy 3 of that community plan, improving the quality of life for unsheltered individuals and creating healthy neighborhoods for all. In addition to their primary roles on staff, the task force members are involved in resource coordination. They leverage existing resources that, to provide services to unhoused individuals at and encampments. Outreach and engagement services are provided in kind by the county and nonprofit agencies, and they help assess and identify specific needs that need to be addressed and tracked by the task force. The task force responds to the community, to community members and local businesses to raise awareness about homelessness and foster a collaborative approach to addressing homeless issues. The task force has built cooperative partnerships with agencies not typically linked with unhoused individuals, including grants from the County Board of Supervisors and in-kind trash bins from Recology. In times of crisis, such as extreme weather or public health emergencies, the task force coordinates with the County of Santa Clara Emergency Services to ensure the safety and well-being of our unhoused population. And finally, when the county and nonprofit agencies exhaust available options and the city manager determines an encampment presents a health and safety concern, the task force coordinates an encampment resolution as a last resort. Once the determination for a resolution has been made, the task force conducts the resolution that results in unbudgeted costs to the city. Contractor expenses related to the resolutions are accounted for in the city manager's contingency fund. Now, the city's Unhoused Task Force has partnered with the County of Santa Clara, and specifically the Supervisor Simitian's office, to secure grants of $50,000 in both fiscal year 2023, 2024, and a second grant in 2024, 2025 that has totaled $100,000. These funds are designated specifically to enhance the services provided to the unhoused population and are instrumental in bolstering the task force efforts. The first $50,000 grant was allocated to West Valley Community Services to expand the Haven to Home program, a crucial initiative aimed at facilitating transitions from homelessness to stable housing and supporting the rotating safe car park program. The county's grants have come in support of our city's prior support to the Haven to Home program and our services addressing immediate needs. West Valley Community Services recently reported approximately 80 individuals benefited from the additional funding just last year. The city will pursue an agreement using the second $50,000 grant from the Board of Supervisors to enhance outreach and engagement services for unhoused individuals. As mentioned before, the county and West Valley Community Services have provided outreach services in kind in prior years. As I mentioned, KJ is here to discuss countywide services. I won't go into in the details right now to allow for her to expand upon them in a later time. Now, staff conducted initial research on local jurisdictions in the area that have adopted diverse policies and strategies to tackle unhoused issues. More in-depth research is needed on the effectiveness and impact of these strategies. First, the town of Los Gatos. In August, the town council authorized the town manager to negotiate and execute an agreement with the county of Santa Clara to provide unhoused engagement services in the amount not to exceed $92,000. The town intends to contract for unhoused engagement services through the Office of Supportive Housing and leverage existing contracts. But like Cupertino, the outreach teams that currently serve the city or the town of Los Gatos are on a limited basis for just a few hours a month. The city of Morgan Hill and the city of Campbell received a capacity building grant from Destination Home to support work related to the 2020 to 2025 community plan to end homelessness. The 3-year partnership has enabled Morgan Hill and Campbell to hire dedicated liaisons for unhoused issues, with a particular focus on Strategy 3. The grant does require demonstrated support from each city for the community plan to end homelessness. The City Campbell City Council also recently allocated $100,000 for the West Valley Shelter Feasibility Study. This study will assess the feasibility of creating a facility to provide temporary or emergency housing for the unhoused population in the entire West Valley. There are currently 221 unhoused individuals in the West Valley, according to the 2023 pit count, and no shelters or temporary housing options exist. Campbell anticipates completing MOUs in the coming months, and the study has 2 parts. Evaluate the demographics of the West Valley's unhoused population, and analyze and recommend facilities and services for temporary housing, including cost estimates. And finally, the City of Berkeley in September approved a policy made changes to a local ordinance aimed at regulating homeless encampments. This policy established location restrictions and designates areas where encampments are allowed, while imposing rules for maintenance and hygiene to safeguard the well-being of unhoused and housed individuals. The policy prioritizes ongoing shelter offers with a preference for individual units, but also explicitly grants the city manager authority to clear encampments under certain conditions. This policy is noted as a prominent example of city council direction regarding encampment resolutions. And once again, the staff has provided 2 options for the council to consider. Continue the current model based on the city's unhoused task force, process for assisting unhoused residents, and partnerships with the County of Santa Clara to measurably serve the city based on the relative needs of existing unhoused residents, including continuing to seek partnerships and possible grant opportunities, or to direct the city manager to propose an item for the fiscal year 2025-2027 work program to develop an encampment management policy by evaluating examples from other jurisdictions in the Bay Area and incorporating their best practices for review by the City Council. And at this point, I'll transition to KJ.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Again, my name is KJ Kaminsky. I'm the acting director for the county's Office of Supportive Housing, and want to thank you for inviting me to join the presentation this evening. I'm going to give a bit of an overview of our current efforts in the community plan to end homelessness, because that is the shared strategic plan that we are working on across the county. Talk a little bit, as Tom mentioned, about the supportive housing system and the different types of programs that we operate across the county, and then share a bit of data and information about what we're seeing in our shared homelessness services database about residents from Cupertino that are accessing services. So just to start, it has been a while. I was, I think, here in 2019 or 2020, presenting this 2020 community plan, which the city council endorsed at that time. We have focused all of our efforts on these 3 strategies in an effort to prevent and end homelessness. One, we know we have to address the root causes of homelessness through system and policy change, enabling the development of affordable housing and permanent housing, working across our safety net system to make sure folks are able to access services. And we'll continue that work it's a large body of work, and we'll continue that work moving forward. Strategy 2 is around expanding our system and the interventions that we know have been successful in preventing people from become homeless, and also helping people move from homelessness into permanent housing. We've greatly expanded that system, but there is still a larger need. And then lastly, strategy 3, we know as we work to expand those permanent housing solutions, there are people who are unsheltered and living outdoors, and we have a series or a group of strategies intended to better meet the needs of those who are unsheltered. Next slide, please. And just to ground this work, this is I have the privilege of sharing some of the outcomes of our collective efforts, but this really is an effort that involves many, many partners. When we began working with cities and Destination Home and our nonprofit partners, we agreed to operate under a collective impact model where we are working towards the same strategies and have the shared goals. We are measuring our outcomes in the same way and sharing that information out in a way that is accountable to our partners across the system. Next slide, please. So just a few highlights of our progress to date, and this is our 2024 mid-year report, or a snapshot. The mid-year report is actually 5 or 6 pages, but just a couple of highlights. Since 2020, since we launched this plan, we're actually now at over 16,000 people have been housed, and that's towards our shared goal of housing 20,000 people across the county. One of the most important metrics that we look at in our community plan efforts is the number of people experiencing homelessness for the first time, and compare that to the number of people who are getting housed. And we want to get to a point where we are housing more people every month that are becoming homeless for the first time. When we started this plan, we were at a ratio for about every 1 household that we housed, another 2.4 were becoming homeless for the first time. In 2023, we measure this one on the calendar year, we were at a ratio of about, for every household we housed, 1.7 became homeless for the first time. So while there's more work to do, we have made progress, and I'll share a bit on a later slide about what that looks like in Cupertino specifically. So the supportive housing system is large and complex, and I don't expect you to read all the words on this screen, but this is kind of a system map of all the different types of services and interventions that are a part of our supportive housing system. So when I say the supportive housing system, I'm talking about everything from outreach to prevention to temporary housing like emergency shelter, to permanent housing programs like rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. I'm going to highlight a few of these. Given the time, I'm not going to go into the details about every one, but kind of highlight a few of the key components, who they serve, how we measure whether these interventions are successful, and how to access those interventions. So starting with homelessness prevention, this has been a system that we have grown tremendously over the last, since it was launched in 2017 in the current homelessness prevention system. It is similar to some traditional prevention systems, but ours is quite flexible in that it's not just I've got a 3-day notice and it's financial assistance to keep me housed. It can be a little bit longer term. It includes case management. It really meets the family or the individual where they are. And what we've seen is that those who were served with our homelessness prevention, in our homelessness prevention system, 96% were able to remain housed while they were receiving services. And 1 year later, only 6% became homeless and entered into our homeless system. This is a county-wide system that there's no wrong door. We have 19 partners that are administering this assistance, and we have, including West Valley Community Services here in Cupertino. For temporary housing, when I speak of temporary housing, there's a lot of different models, and especially now, a lot of focus on the types of temporary housing. I'm going to talk about it in the general sense that includes, shared temporary housing, like emergency shelter, non-congregate temporary housing, which could be tiny homes or hotel rooms, but really that collectively we call emergency shelter. Of course, this is intended to be a warm, safe place for people to stay, provides meals and showers. Many of these services also have, or many of these shelters also have case management included. We see these as a part of the journey to ending homelessness, but not the final destination. The intent is folks stay here temporarily and we're able to assist them into permanent housing. When it comes to permanent housing, first, the coordinated entry system may or may not be familiar to you, but this is really, we have a centralized process for referring people to housing. One assessment is used for all households to assess their need. The intent is to serve the most vulnerable because we don't have enough resources to serve everybody. We want to, 1, serve the most vulnerable, and 2, match people to the type of housing that is going to best meet their needs. Rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing are similar in that both of them provide wraparound supportive services, case management, connection to mental health services, connection to employment training, really, again, meeting the family or the individual where they are. Rapid rehousing is term limited, so it's typically assistance is up to 2 years, at which point they would receive wraparound services and a rental subsidy, but it's term limited to 2 years, whereas permanent supportive housing, that subsidy and those supportive services don't have a time limit. The permanent supportive housing is intended to serve the highest need, folks who have been chronically homeless, have disabling conditions. And what we see with permanent supportive housing, we have a 96% retention rate, housing retention rate in the first 12 months. So now I'm going to shift to sharing a little bit of information about the population here in Cupertino, sort of the needs, where folks are being served. So this data, while the point in time count is one piece of information, and that's a snapshot of one night of homelessness on one night across the county, we use our shared database that is called the Homeless Management Information System, where all of our nonprofit providers, anyone involved in the homeless system of care is utilizing that to give us additional information about the people experiencing homelessness and what their needs are. So what we see from that system is 117 households affiliated with the city of Cupertino completed a housing assessment in the last fiscal year. So that, of course, is across a year, not one point in time. And when I say city affiliation, of course, because folks are unhoused and we don't have an address, we ask 4 questions. So this means we're basing this affiliation on whether if their last permanent address was in Cupertino, if they spend most of their time in Cupertino, if they work in Cupertino, or if their children go to school here. And just some of highlights on the demographics. In the population here in Cupertino, we say about 60% are single adults and 13% are families with children. Compared to countywide, that's 75% countywide are single adults, and 17% are families with children. The big difference is here you have a higher proportion of youth and young adults. 27% of those assessed were youth and young adults, which is compared to 7% countywide. In terms of gender identity, 49% in Cupertino identify as men compared to 60% countywide. And here, this slide just shows a little bit about the age tier breakdown. We've grouped these into about 10 years periods. Again, here, the population here is a little bit younger. That 18 to 24 is a bit higher. And in terms of the race and ethnicity, we broke that down. We do have a limit in terms of when the numbers are small, we have to group them for privacy reasons, so that other category does capture some of the smaller groups. It's not intended to minimize other race and ethnic groups, but we if the number is less than 11, we're not able to share that. So here you see here in Cupertino, about 10% identify as Asian or Asian American, and about 25% Black, African American, or African, and 37% Hispanic or Latino, 26% white. And then I spoke a little bit earlier about that level, the types of programs with rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. When people are assessed, we try to match them with the right type of program. Here in Cupertino, of those assessed, about 42% are estimated to need permanent supportive housing, whereas compared to 52% rapid rehousing. We also ask questions about where folks stay most frequently, and in Cupertino, the top answers are vehicle and outdoors, which is the same as the countywide data in terms of the top two, but there are slightly higher numbers of vehicle dwellers in Cupertino when compared to the county. 33% in Cupertino said they sleep most frequently in their car, compared to 22% in the county, and 26% of Cupertino folks said they sleep outdoors compared to 38% countywide, so slightly higher sleeping outdoors across the county. In terms of time, one of the critical questions we ask is how long it has been since they lived in permanent, stable housing. You'll see here about 26% are less than 3 months, so we would consider those folks newly homeless, first time into our homeless system. And about 44% 2 years or more, so that on the more chronically homeless side. Those numbers are compared to countywide. Countywide, there's slightly higher 2 years, 58% have been homeless 2 years or more, and a lower percentage of the newly homeless in countywide, which makes sense given that more folks had been experiencing homelessness for longer. This inflow and placements into housing is where we get that ratio I talked about earlier in terms of for every household we're housing, how many are becoming homeless for the first time. The bars on the left are the inflow over the last 6 years in Cupertino. So these are folks who we'd never seen request assistance for housing. They were assessed for the first time in our system, and you see that number decreased a bit in 2021 and 2022, and the highest numbers over the last 2 years. That is also true for the placements into housing, where we saw the highest number in the last 2 fiscal years, with 55 households from Cupertino getting housed last year and 51 the year before. The last information I want to share, I know this has been a lot of data-heavy presentation, but I want to share sort of where folks who are affiliated with Cupertino are being served across our system. This is household data, so it's not people. It's more people than households, because some households have 2 or 3, 4 members in them. In permanent supportive housing, there were 38 households affiliated with Cupertino that were in our permanent supportive housing system. This is in last fiscal year. 52 in rapid rehousing, and 14 households in our emergency housing voucher program, which was a one-time voucher awarded by HUD a couple of years ago. 122 households access shelter or safe safe parking across the county, and 72 households were enrolled in street outreach programs, and 24 into housing problem solving. Lastly, our homelessness prevention system that I talked about earlier, 102 households from Cupertino or affiliated with Cupertino were assisted in our homelessness prevention program. So I guess I will end with just a comment that I look forward to working with the city in our next community plan. We will be updating that in next year. And we will also be conducting our point in time count, the data that was shared earlier by Tom. We will be doing that also in January 2025. And if there are any questions, happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all that information. It's really good information, detailed, and very thorough. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask the council if we have any questions for staff. And I see Councilmember Chow's light on.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you for a very detailed staff report and then the process in the attachment. Really appreciate that. And also this presentation from the county is just wonderful. And I think all the questions I asked was answered right here. So thank you for that. And where do I find this presentation? Because that's not included in the staff presentation. And I am also curious, where do I find similar data countywide and for other cities for comparison?
I believe the presentation was included in the supplemental packet, Councilmember Chow.
The supplemental?
That came out yesterday.
But I only had Tom's presentation, I checked. Okay, I'll resolve that later. That's okay. And according to the budget in a glance, for every $1 of the property tax, the city gets 7 cents. The county gets 35 cents. That's 5 times the city gets. So I'm assuming that this 35% of our property tax goes to fund shelters and a lot of these services, right?
I apologize, Councilmember Chow. I'm not able to answer that specifically. I can share information about county funding for unhoused services, but specifically to that property tax question.
Do you know how much the budget is for unhoused?
In the budget for unhoused, for our office, we look at it by the type of intervention. So because we also have housing in our budget.
I have very limited time.
Oh, sorry.
So if I can get this information later, that would be really good. So when we say the county provides some services in kind to Cupertino, actually we are funding those services through the property tax. That's what I want to clarify. And I didn't hear about shelters for families and women with children. Are there special shelters for them?
Yes, they were included in the numbers we shared about shelter, but we do have family-specific shelters that are for families with children. We also have shelters for survivors of domestic violence.
Oh, that's great. If you can provide some data on that later, that would be great. And some say that one of the root causes of homelessness is the increasing prevalence of drug use and addiction. So how much that's contributing to homelessness, and what has the county done to address that?
We know that the primary cause of homelessness is a lack of access to affordable housing. While there are substance use and mental health issues that are prevalent in the unhoused population as well as the general population, so we work with our behavioral health services department and work with folks in our programs to make sure they have access to those programs.
The percentage of drug users and addiction among unhoused population?
I do not have that data point. We ask a survey question, I believe, in the PIT count that I could follow up and
thank you.
provide that.
And another root cause of homelessness or unable to afford housing is people need to possess the job skills that would earn livable income, and then the skills that would have the potential to improve their earning. So I remember I saw county has program for that as part of your overall plan. So could you talk a little about that?
Sure, yes. The county, the social services agency with the county has employment programs, as well as we, in our unhoused services, we provide that part of that case management is connecting folks to employment programs, employment training. They might be county programs, but we also work with them to access programs, private education, other opportunities.
So how effective are those programs to be able to really raise their earning potential so they are not permanently relying on assistance?
We do see many households in our permanent housing programs. Once they're housed, they are able to successfully increase their wages and increase their employment. So, and like our rapid rehousing, for example, folks take over the subsidy when the assistance ends, and they're able to do that because they have increased their income.
That's great to know. Thank you.
I had a question. When we've had a few visible cases of unhoused people in the last several months, and one of the we always thought that the solution would be that we could approach the county and work in partnership with the county, and specifically in finding a bed for them. And at least in the last 2 years, the response we get is that there is no bed available. But I saw a slide of yours which said somehow there's 38 plus 52 plus 14. Is that housing or beds that you provided for Cupertino population?
Yes. So in the last slide where I shared the temporary housing program, so 106 households accessed shelter beds in last year that were from Cupertino. So while there may not be a bed at a given moment in time, because we do have a waiting list, we have a centralized hotline for those referrals, and there is a wait time for that. There may not be a bed available at that moment, but they will get a referral if they call and are interested in accessing a shelter bed.
So you were able to provide a bed to some folks from Cupertino in the last couple of years?
Yes, 108 households last year specifically.
Okay, and that goes through the city?
Not necessarily. Oh, go ahead.
Right, Mayor, I would just note that the number of people affiliated with Cupertino are represented in this data presented by KJ. People who are affiliated could work here, they could have lived here in the past, or have kids going to school here. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were unhoused on the street in Cupertino. Were engaged by a outreach and engagement agency, and then immediately entered into supportive housing. That was not necessarily indicated by this data.
Okay, so affiliated is a broader term than
Correct.
What one would think.
And those folks accessing shelter could have called on their own. It may not have been identified by the city, but could have been a household who was staying in their car and called for assistance on their own.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councilmember Moore?
Sure, all right. Thank you, KJ, for the report, and Tom as well. I find it's a little confusing for me to take the 48 that we were showing in our data and then looking at the county information there for me to get some sense of the trend, because when I look at the Cupertino report, it shows the decrease depending on if you're looking over a number of years or just in the past couple. The data looks like things like what we're doing is working well, but I don't know if that's a true assessment. So start with that. And with regards to the RVs, looking at the county data, it looks like for the total number of homeless, we have about 33%, which are in their cars, or I'm going to assume the RVs are also counted there. And have we, this report, it doesn't really talk about RV parking spaces, but there are cities which have RV parking lots, and we do have a rotating safe parking here. Has there been some consideration about providing that? Because it sounds like, I've seen the number of RVs on Alves. Sometimes I see about 13 of those. Has there been some consideration of having an RV lot somewhere that could have showers or those types of facilities?
We can certainly take that under advisement as a city work program for next year, which I think is one of the options that Tom has proposed. We don't certainly have any policy or any program to implement that, but if this is a council's decision to move forward, we can certainly bring back a program for council to consider.
Okay, thank you. And I am also curious what other cities are doing if you have full-time employees who have these very nice RVs who are using those as homes. So they may or may not be actually homeless, but they're using an RV on the street. And I'm curious about like what Mountain View has done with their RV parking ordinance, and I think that was challenged in court. If there are any other cities that have been successful with that, both managing an RV lot, providing services, and then also being mindful for the street areas where there's excessive parking ending up there.
Certainly. I think Tom might have mentioned this in his presentation. The item before you today is really a TBD item that was to look at the encampment size that was directed by council. But as council also realized that this is really a bigger issue. So we would really want to maybe put more eyes on it as a city work program and have a better defined scope next year. And we can certainly come back with the RV program or other issues.
Thank you. And I appreciate the emphasis on how important it is to prevent the homelessness from happening and how much more expensive it is once somebody has slipped into homelessness to bring them back, and how very challenging it is for people who've been on the street for a number of years. The 2-year point, I'm glad that you're emphasizing that information. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Wei.
So my question is to follow up with the Councilmember Moore's question. Do we have exact data point of whether our homelessness is increasing or decreasing in the last 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Wei and Councilmember Moore, for the question about the difference between the pit count and the data represented by the county. I want to point that the pit count is a physical single point in time. So they have to physically be in the jurisdiction of Cupertino to be counted in that number. The numbers that you see from the county and KJ presenting and all the services provided are county-wide that happen to involve a individual affiliated with Cupertino. So there's certainly going to be a larger number provided by the county than physically, ideally physically in Cupertino. And should again expand that on that pit count is single day in time. So the number may be slightly different on varying days and at varying times based upon different circumstances around us.
So I think I've asked the same question. On the single day point of count, do we think there's overlapping numbers, or are they the exact numbers? Do we have more or less?
think the trend that you see in the pit count over the last 3 pit counts has been showing a decreasing number. It's, again, chosen by a single day. So it has been showing a decreasing number over time.
Okay, Vice Mayor Fruin.
So first, thank you both for very excellent reports. I'll note your first slide after the recommended action would at least show us on paper as doing pretty well. These are the percentage changes from 2019 to 2023 and from 2022 to 2023 in the pointing time count. So what are we doing right so far that we're getting a better number than others?
First and foremost, I think it's our partnership with the County of Santa Clara. We've extended incredible opportunities. We've been extending incredible opportunities by the county, not only in the in-kind services for outreach and engagement, but the responsiveness and our efforts that match the community plan to end homelessness, that supporting the individuals on the street and really in helping engage with an outreach first model. Has been really beneficial. I'll let KJ expand if she would like.
I would just add that if we look at how many housing placements there have been from folks affiliated with Cupertino, the last 2 years have been the highest of the last 6. I expect there's some correlation there between people moving from homelessness to housing and the decrease in the PIT number.
Is there something particular about the population that we have here that makes it easier to move them from being unsheltered to being sheltered?
I don't have an answer to that specifically today. No, I think the population here, other than being slightly younger, at this point it would be a hypothesis. Much of it looks very similar to the county. So I don't know, but I can look into it and get back to you.
Sure. I guess that takes me to my next question, which is what would you say are the top, maybe 3 reasons that it's difficult to move someone from an unsheltered situation to a sheltered one? Like why would somebody refuse a bed?
That's a great question. Thank you, Vice Mayor. There are several reasons. Sometimes the available bed isn't in the area that they choose or would like to be. Sometimes there are limitations in terms of their ability to access their job or other services. So location can be a factor. While we attempt to make every shelter that the county funds accessible to folks by allowing pets and other service animals, not every bed, and we do have some maximums at shelters for animals, so sometimes that can be a barrier, especially if there are a lot of animals. And some folks, like folks who have RVs, would prefer to stay in their vehicle rather than go into a shelter. That's the type of, that's what we hear from folks, but there are many different types of shelters available, so we do try to keep, if somebody says no to one type of bed or one opportunity, they would still be eligible for another bed at another time.
Got it. The city of San Jose has had to dedicate a significant number of millions of dollars in order to secure its stormwater permit, and as part of that is to shelter people or at least move unhoused individuals out of the creeks. I may be asking you for too much speculation, but how do you think that would impact us here?
I don't think I could say how that might impact folks in Cupertino.
Got it. Okay. There was also a reference at one point, and I'm not sure what the predicate for it was, but to 221 unhoused folks in the West Valley. I'm not sure what was counting as the West Valley there.
That was a number out of the action provided by the city of Campbell.
Okay, but what counts as West Valley in that analysis?
The Campbell, Saratoga, Cupertino, area, Los Gatos.
Okay, so nothing of San Jose District 1, 6, 9. Okay, so it's completely excluded. All right. All right, I think those are all my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes, and one quick question about the property the county, I believe, now owns on the west side of Valco that's being looked at for teacher housing. Is there any plan to have transitional housing at that location?
Thank you for your question, Council Member. I do not believe that's currently in the plans, but would be happy to share, follow up and share sort of where that project is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so before we go to public comments, maybe we could take a quick break, a 10-minute break, and we'll have public comments, and then we'll have further deliberations on this issue. So 10 minutes, starting now. We'll be back at 9 o'clock. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Let's proceed, and we will go to public comments on the unhoused issue. And Madam City Clerk, how many cards do we have?
Yes, Mayor, I have 5 requests to speak from within Community Hall. I see 2 hands raised virtually. 21 minutes.
Okay, go with it.
First, we have Jennifer Griffin, followed by Deborah Fang, followed by Claudia Bono. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, City Council. I'm really glad that you all were having a study session on this because it's a very, very important topic. As the 2 dear souls over here, who I have seen before, I think at different meetings, have explained, it's a very, very complicated topic. We have to have a lot of empathy because there are so many different factors. I have followed the county's plans to provide teacher housing and possibly supportive housing at the property at the Oaks, the Rise. And as I have stated before, I was in college with Bambi Larson. If you are not familiar with the case of Bambi, I think that it kind of involves everything because she was lost by terrible means, and I want to support her as a brilliant woman, as a 21-year-old who took biochemistry at San Jose State, and how I remembered her. Then again, the poor soul that took her life is sitting in jail, and he has so many problems. My brother, who passed 9 years ago, was a psychologist for the county and city of Modesto for at-risk youth. He used to go to court with them. My sister-in-law, who survived him, is a high school psychologist at one of the poorest high schools in Modesto. They also had foster youth at various times. We have another nephew who is a psychologist at an unnamed location, which I will not reveal because it's a very, very important situation. I think that we need to understand what the root causes are of this, how we can help people. I understand that there is a great deal of drug abuse, alcoholism, mental illness issues. I'm very, very familiar with this because my brother dealt with it almost daily in his job. And he was a career psychologist. If he had survived, he would have retired from the county. At this point, we want to make sure that people are doing the best they can to provide these people. Should we rebuild Agnews? There was a need for it in the past. I'm very familiar with that. We actually had a family member that was there many, many, many years ago. And I'm proud to say that. But I will tell you that we had a homeless camp from 2022 to 2024 next to me, and people dropped their pants, and there was prostitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Deborah Fang, followed by Claudio Bono, followed by Darcy. Welcome, Deborah.
Good evening. Mayor Mohan, Vice Mayor Fruin, Councilmember Chow, Councilmember Wei, and Councilmember Moore, thank you for having me this evening. My name is Deborah Fang. I'm the CEO of the Cupertino Chamber of Commerce. Back in 2020, I was the city manager, and we were dealing with probably the largest homeless encampment the city had, 25-person homeless encampment across Wolf Road at the time. And I feel that we dealt with it in a pretty successful way. In fact, I believe Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Chow were on council at that time and could see it as we dealt with it. And what I think is most effective that I think Tom and AJ have been talking about here is the interconnectivity of the very delicate partnerships and cooperation and collaboration that these offices have, not only with each other, the city and the Office of Supportive Housing at the county level, but also the need for nonprofits, that interaction, the interaction of other government agencies that are related with regards to the outreach, the county's assessment of individuals, the access to even private firms who oftentimes provide necessary funding or donations to some of the nonprofits that are supporting the efforts with regards to the unhoused and funding some of the not only services but the shelters and all the other wraparound services that come with the permanent housing, the wraparound services, and sometimes the transitional housing. So what I learned during that period of time in 2020 was how complex the problem is, and how to garner enough empathy in terms of providing a plan before you go into I think we still call it a removal process, but it sounds so insensitive, but it's when dealing with humans, you gotta have a plan together in terms of helping them to the next step. The other thing that I think was so hard during that period of time was the pressure to get the removal complete when you're trying to be very judicious and thoughtful about the steps you take. You are dealing with humans. They have belongings. Some of them are working. Some of them have, I'll call them special needs, either because they have behavioral or mental health issues. And so I feel like the city is dealing with the current issues in a really effective way. And if and when the council decides to do something differently in the next fiscal year, great. But I think the business community, some of the owners whom are also community members in terms of living in Cupertino, we're pleased with how it's been dealt with thus far. And we would like to continue. Thank you.
Next we have Claudio Bono, followed by Darcy, followed by Belinda Huntart. Welcome, Claudio.
Good evening, Claudio Bono again. I'll speak on my behalf as a Cupertino resident. Indeed, this homeless crisis is a very complex and very complicated, and I'll agree with all of you tonight. With all due respect and love, I don't believe in those numbers because they do changes every day. And I'm really thankful for the staff report and to be able to bring this global crisis here at our city council. It's very helpful, but also this report leaves me with many questions. Page 1 of the city staff talks about unhoused task force operating without a budget. So what can one do without a budget? What can do? On page 6, it says homelessness prevention program offers rental assistance. Where? What kind of rental assistance? I would love to hear more about that too. And it also says that the emergency shelters manages temporary housing services. Those shelters are often at full capacity. Do you know why they're at full capacity? Well, because they don't have bunk beds to begin with. I spoke with several mayors from surrounding cities, and in this one was Sunnyvale. Apparently the state has the power. So we do have the former Home First, the Santa Clara County largest homeless service provider that ceased operation in March 2024, and the Bill Wilson Center took over since then in July. But at the end of the day, you have 145 beds that could accommodate double. This is not a fire code, but there is just one building, is no second floor. There's about 8 exits, and I'm telling you, this is all about bureaucracy, and the state has the power. So San Jose has the 4th highest homeless population in the US, and from 2020 to 2023, we had a 13% increase. It's due to the Supreme Court Justice decisions that at the end of the day, we're removing encampments and it's out of sight, out of mind. So we don't see them, we think it's getting better. It's not, because the data changes every day. And Governor Newsom's office has been hammered by having not really any kind of real database and no accountability as well. And last but foremost, I'll just say, it says also on the report that notices are given before encampments are being removed, but also it says that items are being held X amount of time. We've seen that they don't have time to protect their birth certificates, ID, everything is being discarded. So I don't know what you're going to decide tonight as far as the recommended action, but I would suggest continue with the current model, because anything on the second level, as direct the city manager propose something else, would take time and delay everything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Claudio. Next we have Darcy, followed by Belinda Hantart. And then we will move to those requesting to speak virtually. Welcome, Darcy.
Thank you. The last recommendations I made before leaving office were precisely related to this topic. Why was that? And I'll bring this back. Don't worry, this will relate. The issue with lobbying and the corruption of our civic and democratic processes by the influence of money is that it distorts reality, but not even remotely in a good way. Chemistry makes life better. But if a chemical company knows that particular chemicals that have remarkable properties for some purposes are not safe, then those chemicals should not be used. But profit-driven motives tend to expose a lot of people to a lot of bad things in the absence of thinking people of conscience, as we constantly observe. If an industry knows that labeling particular materials recyclable when they are not actually recyclable, then this could maybe, cause years and years and decades upon decades of confusion across the board, litter, and, as we examined at my inaugural and to date only Mayor's Cup event that opened up the library expansion room in 2022, hazards of microplastics that we have only since realized even more just how invasive this material is to us. Congratulations, by the way, to our library for its 20th anniversary, the main building of which we are still paying for, with amazing programming last weekend in our library expansion areas, which we are not paying for because when I was in office serving with Liang Chow, Kitty Moore, Stephen Scharf, and John Willey, we lived within our means and we took extra efforts to hear and understand what everyone had to say, as weird as that might seem. And so let's be honest about what the pressures are. Good people don't become bad just because they don't go along to get along in what end up being collusive and deeply harmful manners. If legislation ends up being driven by for-profit development pressures, then it is likely similarly driving us into a decades-long cycle where politicians might climb a little more here and there, but conscientious observers know that what will ultimately end up happening is that private money-driven finger-pointing that use as part of their vehicle unfunded mandates will have us, everyone, spinning our wheels, not for years, but for decades. The tragedy of this is that we have the social and physical resources to deal with this problem as a society. Maybe we can start here. Encourage your friends and kids to look at serving the public, not just as careers or for pensions, but with purpose. More and better social workers are needed for good transitional services. Just as we connected directly with Caltrans for the first time when I was in office to clean up our highway off-ramps for this issue, pick up the work with your communities of spirituality and faith. As those houses once rotated safe shelters in Cupertino, talk to your residents who have taken in the unhoused. They exist, They might even be people who give public comment. Don't be afraid of doing something effective. This is a community that will find a way to support solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Next we have Belinda Hantart. Sorry if I misspoke on your name.
Hi, good evening. Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members. My name is Belinda Hantu, and I am probably the only homeless person here. It's been an interesting evening. I just want to touch on something that the lady over here said. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. She was speaking about why people don't go into these shelters. And then the gentleman over here, Mr. Bono, mentioned that bunk beds would be an answer. I don't think you understand what it's like to wake up in a room with 50 strangers. It's very disconcerting. You don't feel safe. You never feel safe. When I first came to this area, I was in San Jose, and I walked around all night long because I was too afraid to sleep. And you can't say it's all our fault. I don't do drugs. I don't have a mental health issue, although anybody that is homeless that isn't affected somehow has to be some kind of super person. I was in the winter shelter, and some of the people there are so elderly, and they were, I have done personal care in many nursing homes and a couple of assisted livings, and these people just needed that kind of care, but they were just left there. And I don't know how you can go there every day and see those people and not have some sort of mental problem. It's really bad the way we're treating people. It's just not right. And I don't know if it's profit. I don't know the whole answer, but I just want you to know that it's a lot of suffering going on. We're talking about empathy. You can't have these places that are packed with all these people and then expect them to be okay, because it just doesn't happen that way. We need like individual space to break down and cry sometimes. You don't want to do that in front of 50 people. I don't want to take up a lot of time here, but I just want you to know that even, we struggle every day to get the things that we need. Our toiletries aren't laid out on a vanity. They're in a bag, and we have to take them out every time, put them away every time. It's not 12 steps to the restroom, it's 12 minutes. It's a whole different kind of life that you have to try to work around and try to figure out how do you function? How do you function this way? And it's very, very difficult not to have the regular things that everybody else has, just to give you an idea, okay? Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you, Belinda. And now we have 4 people requesting to speak virtually. Cassandra Magana, San R, Venkat Ranganathan, and Lisa. Welcome, Cassandra.
Hi, my name is Cassandra, and before I start my public comment, I want to say that I feel for Belinda's situation. My name is Cassandra, and I am the manager of policy and advocacy at West Valley Community Services. First, I would like to thank the council and staff for revisiting this important issue and reviewing the ordinance enacted in 2022. At WVCS, we deeply value the collaborative efforts between our organization, the city, and the county in addressing encampments. After reviewing the staff recommendations and considering Berkeley's ordinance, we believe that our current process for addressing encampments should remain unchanged. The existing partnership between WVCS, the city, and the county has allowed us to transition and clear encampments as humanely as possible, ensuring that people are connected to the services they need. While we recognize and appreciate Berkeley's ordinance and the response to recent court rulings, our circumstances in Cupertino differ. Major cities with larger unhoused populations may need to implement new approaches, but here the current ordinance and the first recommendation have proven effective in keeping people housed and supported. However, if the council decides to proceed with staff recommendation option 2, which directs the city manager to develop an encampment management policy by following the best practices of other Bay Area jurisdictions, we remain hopeful in our continued collaboration. We look forward to working with the city to create an ordinance that uplifts our community and reflects the voices of those directly impacted. As we all know, community involvement will be the key to building solutions that are sustainable and responsive. While other cities are conducting feasibility studies, such as Campbell, we believe it's important to await the finding of these studies to ensure our policies are well informed and align with those partnering cities. Thank you for your time and commitment to addressing these important issues.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next, we have San R, followed by Venkat Raghunathan, followed by Lisa. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan and council members. This agenda item seems to present us with false choices that I cannot fathom, frankly. It's mind-boggling when I see the second choice says FY25 to FY27. The city manager is going to go off and bring back a work program and develop policy, and we're going to need to fund consultants to maintain the policy. This just feels like more pork barrel spending. And there's got to be better choices than these two. What can we do to provide empathetic and humane solutions while working creatively with resources at the county level, at private organizational level, at the state level, and at the same time, make sure that residents' concerns in the space are addressed and unhygienic conditions do not persist where these encampments are. Just in the last week, there have been a series of trending next door posts that I've had others show me because supporters of the council majority have taken a vindictive approach to kick out all of the council minority supporters off of Nextdoor. I could not see it myself, but someone showed it to me. There have been a number of complaints from people living behind Target on the state of that area and the conditions that they're having to witness. So waiting till FY25 to FY27 is just unfathomable, and it just feels like the council needs to direct staff to go back, do their job, come back with creative options in frugal and creative ways that solve the problem in the shortest time possible, working with resources that are available today. So the answer cannot be status quo or FY27. If that is the case, then we need a new city manager who can actually think out of the box. And maybe that is the answer we need. Let's go and figure out, or if we can't do that, maybe we need a new council and a new city manager. And maybe that's what it takes to go say, fix this. And maybe that's what we'll have next month. But let's go figure something out here that places real choices. And I request this council not to make decisions along the lines of number 2, which just becomes more pork barrel spending, giving more money to consultants that we don't have. So please, let's stop wasting our money on consultants. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Next, we have Venkat Raghunathan, followed by Lisa. Welcome, Venkat.
Hey, good evening, City Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Venkat Ranganathan. I live off of Portal on Amherst, and we have poignant memories of unhoused people who need help. Take up public space, and it not only is an inconvenience for them during the harsh winter, but they also have unhygienic conditions, particularly during the COVID period, where we had the unhygienic surroundings of unhoused people. So the thing that I wanted to emphasize is there are public organizations. We know that county takes a major share of the property tax, but we need to see how we can get more from the county and also help from the public, private organizations like West Valley Services and others. I know a few who do it to encourage these unhoused individuals to move to shelter, particularly with the winter onset, and also making sure that the public access are not intruded, and the unhygienic acts happenings in these encampments don't cause problems to the residents surrounding that place. So I would encourage good partnership solutions to be arrived at. That's what my recommendation is. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat. Next, we have Lisa. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm going to be not specific to what's been presented, but more general. And I believe it was Belinda who spoke as someone that knows this situation firsthand and shared the challenges, I think that's who your consultants should be, people who are living this. And of course, you'll need other types, but part of the housing element this time around was to further fair housing and have conversations with people who are struggling to find a secure, permanent or even partially permanent situation for living. And I think Deb Fang did a great job when she was city manager with the situation we had. And I don't even like to call it a situation. These words that come out of my mouth make me kind of cringe. But it's more of a situation than a problem. Because I think problem is very negative. Situation means you have the ability to think clearly, involve the right people, and come up with a solution that is appropriate for who you are trying to assist. I have a close family member that has worked with companies, businesses that they do this for a living. And there's multiple ways they do things dependent on the needs of the particular groups, and not everyone's the same. Anyway, I get emotional about this because I've seen firsthand this family member working with people and how hard it is to get them what they know they need. And it's not going to be easy. But our highly paid consultants, the answer entirely, my answer is no. So let's go back to the workshops you had that were required basically by the housing element, by HCD. Go back to what we were supposed to be figuring out in that realm and invite conversations from, and Belinda, if it's not your name, I'm really sorry. I didn't write it down, but I think it's Belinda. Listen to what she shared and ask her for connections. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And Mayor, no additional requests to speak for this item.
Okay. All right, so that ends the public comments part of this item. Let's bring it back to council. And since we have two options that we have to consider, why don't we do the discussions first and then go with a motion to choose one item, option number one or option number two. So I will start with you, Councilmember Chow.
Okay, first, two questions. Will the information, this very good information tonight, be posted on the website? Maybe on the City Plan to End Homeless website?
The presentation is already in the supplemental, which is on the website.
It's not easy to access. So the City Plan to End Homeless page has a count from 2022. So maybe we can update that with the very good presentation from the county too, so that it's easily accessible.
We'll find a home for that location.
Yeah. And I think these questions comes a lot from our residents. What is the best way to help a house individual? I think a lot of times they choose the location where it's near a commercial strip because they get direct assistance from people. And so I would like to know, is that the best way to help them? Or should people who feel the empathy and want to do something direct their donation to maybe an agency who specializes in providing services?
Councilmember Chow, from the city's perspective, we would prefer that people report and indicate where they see people who need assistance through our Cupertino 311, where the city will then work with our partners and agencies to provide comprehensive services.
But if they want to do something themselves, is there any information from the county maybe on?
Sure, Councilmember Chow, thank you for the question. There are many ways folks, I think, can get involved and help. Looking at agencies that are providing services, there may be volunteer opportunities or donation opportunities. If folks are interested and comfortable in talking with people who are experiencing homelessness, referring them to the shelter hotline or other, helping them get connected to other agencies like West Valley Community Services can help them access what is available across the system.
Mm-hmm. I have spoken to some of these agency staff, and they told me actually directly donating any necessity of food to an individual is not the best way, because the agencies usually would like to provide them small dosage of assistance so that they would come and then they can provide other wraparound services for them. Is that a good understanding?
Councilmember, I would just say I think people helping folks meet their basic needs, food, hygiene items, things like that. Most folks who are experiencing homelessness would welcome that help in any way that it comes.
Okay, thank you. Then here, so I think homelessness has multiple root causes, and addressing it does require a coordinated effort with interconnected agencies to provide comprehensive services. Beyond the high cost of housing, factors like drug use, addiction, lack of job skills, and health-related inability to work, and the erosion of social safety nets all contribute. I think in the past, we have family and friends who would provide more support during tough times, but today, people are less connected, so the safety net is much weaker. Some people end up homeless after being burdened with medical bills while caring for aging parents. Others face homelessness due to illness or unexpected family crisis. Nearly 25% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. Some surveys show 64% of adults are living paycheck to paycheck. That means if they lose their jobs or face any unexpected expenses, they could find themselves homeless overnight. The reality is homelessness can happen to anyone. The county does get 35% of our property tax, while the city only gets 7%. Thus, the city does need to rely on the county and work together with various agencies who are specialized in addressing this important and yet very complex issue. I am ready to make a motion, so maybe I can do that after other council member comments.
Yeah, Councilmember Moore, you don't want to say something? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. So with regards to the city's website for the city plan to end homelessness, I'm looking at like what Mountain View has on their website for information. If we could have something like the shelter hotline added to the page, and if staff would want to perhaps look at what Mountain View has or what the county has and see if there's some more resource tables that we could add to ours, I think that might help. And some of the advice that Council Member Chow is seeking about what's the best thing for people who want to be helping to do that's going to provide the best outcome. I think that would be very helpful in the short term. That's it. Thank you.
So reading your the staff report, the two options that you presented, it sounds like whatever the city is doing now seems to be working. There's, in fact, in the staff report, it says relative success of the city's current practices. So do you attribute that mainly to the collaboration with the county and maybe West Valley Community Services? Is that the primary reason you think that our program is working?
Absolutely. It's our interconnected partnerships with the county and West Valley Community Services in particular, but the ingenuity of the staff to work on a outreach and engagement priority to every encampment and every unhoused individual in Cupertino.
Okay, and we did something specific with the recent case, right? You did something that we hadn't done before. Did you have like a 30-day notice, or did you put up an?
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Didn't you have like a 30-day advance notice for this unhoused person to move out somewhere?
Mayor, I won't comment necessarily on a specific case, but
Okay.
our standard practice is to provide advance notice to an encampment if we were to do a resolution.
All right. Okay, but thinking about that, that's not exactly the optimum solution, because we're not doing anything other than just moving them from, say, point A to point B. My other question, my other comment was about the other cities, the other jurisdictions which have some kind of a plan for the encampment management policy. It doesn't look like anyone has succeeded any more than we have. Are they all in the same situation where they're exploring options and figuring out how to do it? Because I looked at your staff report, and other than the City of Berkeley having a very extensive plan, I didn't see any signs of success that other jurisdictions have experienced. Am I correct in assuming that?
I would say that each city has had different levels of success and different levels of frustration.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just in short, there's really no immediate solution, and no city has really solved homelessness.
Okay, all right. Okay, Councilmember Chow, you wanted to you were ready for a motion?
We can do. I can share the slide.
Oh, if you want, we can go to Vice Mayor Fruin
sure.
and then come back to you. Vice
Sure.
Mayor Fruin.
To go back to encampment resolution for a moment, I just wanted to get some notion of what exactly the criteria are that you would follow for determining that a particular encampment represents a sufficient threat to public health and safety that it warrants resolution.
There's a couple of different criteria that we work with. Of course, leading with outreach and engagement if our partners have determined that they've exhausted all their resources and are not successful. And additionally, the public safety, health and safety issue is paramount. We would make a resolution. Those things could include blocking the public access or the right-of-way, non-responsive to requests for maintenance, and things of that nature.
Got it. Okay. I just want to make sure that's clear for the public, so it's obvious that we're not creating a Cupertino of cruelty. To the city manager, with respect to recommendation number 2, I'm just curious as to what sort of resources you think this might involve.
We could, I don't think we're looking for a consultant. If this is the conversation, that's where it's going. We can certainly start looking at in-house between Tom and his mighty team of 1. We could look at other division, perhaps housing division from CDD, Public Works division and whatnot, and start going there. If we need additional resource, we'll certainly come back and propose that as part of the city work program.
Got it. And is there a housing element policy or program you think that this folds into well?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. So it would be reasonable to say that it would be part of our implementation of the housing element anyway.
More than certainly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moore?
Okay, thank you. This is kind of a side question. What happens when we have individuals who are on Caltrans land, but they're within the city of Cupertino? How does Caltrans handle this? and where do the individuals then go?
Councilmember Moore, thank you. I will first start with that whenever there's a resident of Cupertino or business owner or visitor in Cupertino sees someone that needs assistance, the city recommends that they report encampments and people needing assistance through Cupertino 311, so that the city can coordinate services, including partnerships with the Caltrans. And the way that Caltrans operates, we would submit a ticket on behalf of the resident to report the encampment. We can partner with them to do outreach and engagement, but it's really their property and their right of way to clear if they determine it appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And I did forward one today for that. So also for the plan to end homelessness page, if that information could potentially be shared, I think that would be very helpful, because I'm hearing a lot of frustration from the residents who have tried the Caltrans route and not been successful. So I like the idea that the city you'll leverage your connections with Caltrans. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Vice Mayor Fruin.
Yes, and before I forget, I wanted to acknowledge Belinda's testimony before us today. I think that was very powerful, and I don't think that it was lost on any of us. It can't be easy to come and share a story like that, especially in a forum like this. And it speaks to the special dignity of having four walls and a roof over your head that you can call your own, even if for just a short while. So thank you.
Yeah, I think if anything that showed us the complexity of this problem and your personal experiences and your personal hardships definitely added, some understanding to what we're debating today. So thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Chow, you wanted to.
So, yeah, I've written it up. So, I think the city has been working well with the county, and we really don't have staffing resource for that. And the county plan to end homeless seems to be executing well. So let's continue that. So my motion is a staff recommendation number 1. Continue the current model based on the city's unhoused task force process for assisting unhoused residents, and partnership with the county of Santa Clara to measurably serve the city based on the relative needs of existing unhoused residents, including continuing to seek partnerships and possible grant opportunities. And I would like to add that we agendize a study session to provide an update just like this one in 1 year, maybe October 2025, with the status, including RVs, and provide the summary of policies and best practices adopted by other jurisdictions and their effectiveness for the council to consider. At that time, whether option 2, which is developing an encampment management policy by evaluating examples from other jurisdictions in the Bay Area, is necessary, or consider other options at that time.
Councilmember Moore.
Moore, I second. And I agree, hearing that most of the support is for option 1 from both residents and our business community. I appreciate the commentary from Belinda about her lived experiences, and also that we had our former city manager, Deb Feng, come speak. She had a very challenging situation she handled very delicately back in 2020. Right, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to go with option 1 with an addendum that the city comes back in a year and update us on the housing situation, on the homeless situation. That's accurate, right?
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, we have
it's
to...
yeah, it's on the screen.
Yeah. Okay, let's vote. Let's do a voice vote Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Chow?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Aye.
Mayor Mohan?
Aye.
The motion as amended carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you to county and staff. All right. Okay, let's move on to the action calendar. Item number 7, which is amendments to the Cupertino Municipal Code, various chapters. And the presenter is our city attorney. So, Mr. City Attorney, if you want to proceed.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I just give me a second while I bring up my screen. That's the wrong one. Thank you. So every fall we try to come back with an ordinance that addresses minor and technical corrections to the municipal code, and so that is what we're here doing today. I'm just going to briefly walk you through some of the proposed changes, and then of course be available for questions about more specific items. So Chapter 15.04, we are recommending repealing that chapter in its entirety. The purpose of that chapter is to set rates for the city's municipal water system. The city does not, no longer regulates rates for the water system and is not legally able to do so under the current structure of our lease with the San Jose Water Company, and that's been true since that lease was restructured in 2019, and it's also true of the new lease that council just approved this year. So we are recommending removing this chapter because it is no longer necessary or relevant. Section 2.3206, those are just really minor amendments to how the Planning Commission votes. Those are intended to be just clarify existing law and do not have any substantive change to the Planning Commission procedures. Chapter 2.74, we're proposing amendments to the jurisdiction of the TIC Commission, and these changes are largely proposed to reflect current practices of the TIC Commission, and part of that is due to changes in state or federal law over the years. Part of that is due to, I think, a change of focus of the Commission, which has I think increasingly been interested in online security and safe use of technology, and less so in areas where the jurisdiction in the code is largely preempted by state and federal law at this point. We are also proposing amendments to Section 2.86010. And those are just clarifications to the Housing Commission jurisdiction to conform to an ordinance that Council adopted earlier this year. There is a supplemental, this is discussed in the supplemental report you received yesterday, and there were some corrections to the language in the ordinance that was distributed with the agenda packet that staff is recommending that you're adopting, and basically those corrections make it clear and consistent with other provisions in that chapter that the business representative on the commission will continue to be preserved, notwithstanding the changes that council has made to that chapter. We are proposing amendments in Chapter 11.08 to allow bicycle riding on 2 sections of the sidewalk, and the Transportation Division recommends these amendments to facilitate connectivity to the Regnart Creek Trail and also to the bike racks at Cupertino High School. And then several amendments to Chapter 13.04 parks. One is simply to clarify that the city manager can delegate authority over parks to most likely to our Parks and Recreation Director to make rules regarding parks. And then an amendment to section 13.04130 to basically make the rules for drones parallel to existing rules for model airplanes. So a classic amendment to update our code to reflect changes in technology over time. So that is the extent of my presentation. We are recommending that you conduct a first reading and introduce the ordinance before you as amended by the supplemental report that you received yesterday. And I am here for any questions that council may have.
Councilmember Moore, any questions for staff?
No, thank you for the presentation. Well, actually, I do have one question about page 5 of the ordinance. If it's something we could maybe add in, it says to you lead, ride, drive, keep, or let loose any animal, reptile, or fowl of any kind without a permit to do so from the Director of Parks and Recreation. I just glanced at it. For some reason, it makes me think that you can't have an off-leash dog unless you had a permit from the Director of Parks and Recreation. And maybe want to consider that for the next cleanup, or perhaps I'm misunderstanding it.
So I don't know if our Parks and Recreation Director is able to shed any light on how that provision is interpreted in 2024, but I'll give her the opportunity to try.
Thank you. And thank you for your question. So that section is actually more about people having like bunnies at a birthday party when they rent the picnic areas and the different animals that come with that. The dog area is actually a little lower, I think, in the code, where it does talk about there can be off-leash areas as long as it's a designated area. So we don't really put the two together on that one.
All right, thank you. I don't know how it could be kind of parsed out because it does say let loose any animal. Maybe in the future some definition could go in there to accept dogs, and and I have seen cats in our parks on leashes as well. Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Yeah, just by clarification of the city attorney, would this not be a case of the specific controlling the general?
That could certainly be one way to interpret it.
Okay.
That sounds like it's consistent with the way that our Parks Department has interpreted the provision.
Okay.
But certainly we could look at that for future updates. Unless there were an urgent need to do it now.
Okay. So long as I think staff understand that we don't intend to, shadow abolish DOLAs, I think that's fine.
Yeah, or dogs in parks. I don't think that would be a popular policy.
Councilmember Chow?
Yeah. So thank you for the answers in the supplemental report. So just want to clarify, for Housing Commission, the business rep would remain, right?
That's correct, yes.
So
and yes.
The proposal, we are going to amend the draft.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And I remember the IT department submitted a fiber optic proposal to the state to get funding, which is why I'm wondering, wouldn't that be under TIC? But then it's unclear if that kind of plan is still under the Technology Commission or not.
So I think there's general language in the amendments proposed by staff that would still cover that plan. If you see that there's broad language that still gives the TIC to advise council regarding technology.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the language that we're suggesting is deleted. That was really predated changes in state law that significantly limited local jurisdictions to enforce regulate video service providers in their jurisdiction.
And another question is about the cell towers. So it's not under planning, it's not under TIC, it's not under any planning commission. I know the FCC has strict rules, but then there are still other considerations that the cities can do. So are you suggesting it's not under and not either of these commission?
So on on private property and and public parcels outside of the right of way, the zoning ordinance does regulate cellular tower installations. So that would be within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, of course, to enforce the jurisdiction.
On the right of way, shouldn't that be also under planning? It's because it's under zoning, and zoning is under Planning Commission.
So generally, the zoning ordinances do not regulate the right-of-way. In Cupertino, like I think most jurisdictions, it's the primary...
But it will be aesthetics of the height, and then how it look, how big it is. Then
right.
Which commission should be advising the council on that?
So at this point, we don't have any commission with a specific jurisdiction to advise the council on that.
So if the council wants a commission to help, they need to provide direction.
There are a number of commissions, including the Planning Commission, where there is a sort of a broad catch-all provision that allows council to direct the commissions to look at different issues.
So other question is about the bike path. Let me share. Thank you for the map that's provided. So this is a map for the area that will be added near Cupertino High. So the yellow part is the bicycle path, that the sidewalk where we would allow bicycle to ride on there. And according to the answer in the supplemental, the bicycle can ride both directions, no speed limit, and electric bikes will be allowed, but not electric scooter, which can run really fast. But electric bike could also run fast. Then I'm just thinking logistically how safe it is for both the bicycle and pedestrians that will be using this sidewalk. How this is a very narrow sidewalk.
So this is a recommendation from our transportation manager. I mean, he did review the question that you provided and was answered in the supplemental, and in his opinion, there are other shared use trails in Cupertino where both pedestrians and bicyclists use the trails, and we have not had a high incidence of accidents or risk to pedestrians on those trails.
Because I remember near Lawson Middle School, a lot of bicycles did ride on sidewalk, and we have gotten complaints from parents that it's not safe but because at the time Lawson didn't really have bike paths to get to the bike page, that was the only way. So, but it did create issues for. Fortunately, this is high school, so kids are older. If it were in elementary school, likely would be concerned because elementary school kids, if they walk to school alone. So is it possible we just allow maybe one direction bike in the morning, one direction in the afternoon?
I couldn't speak to the feasibility of that. I could see that being an enforcement issue. We
can talk about that later.
Yeah, I can say that I mean, the sidewalk was specifically designed to accommodate bicycles, and so we're really just updating our code to accommodate to reflect that design decision.
Okay, let's go to public comments and then come back to council for further deliberations. Madam City Clerk, how many speakers
Yes, Mayor, I have at least one card requesting to speak in Community Hall. I see 2 hands raised virtually.
Okay.
Okay, Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, City Hall. I'm losing it here. Good evening. It's nice to see you all. And I just had one comment. The situation with the electric bikes, we have noticed this. They actually rent them out in Santa Cruz to tourists a lot of the time. And my mother and I have been menaced by people older than me on e-bikes. There were two men, and they were screaming at my mother to keep driving, and she had stopped because a golf cart was in the right-of-way in front of her. So there was an 80-year-old man on an e-bike that ran over and knocked down a 94-year-old woman and killed her in Santa Cruz about a month ago. So this has come up at the county. It's a very serious situation, but I would be concerned about having electric bikes on the sidewalk around the city, et cetera, because they can go too fast. And I didn't even realize that a 16-year-old legally in the state, if you're under 16, you cannot ride certain types of e-bikes, the ones that go fast. That's a state law. I had no idea. But yeah, I think we need to keep the e-bikes on the road, because you're going to have students that are going too fast. They're going to knock down people. That by the high school, it's a residential area in there, and there are people that walk all the time. So you may have situations where, people are people, kids are kids. They may be going too fast. And unless you're going to have the police down there all the time ticketing people, I'm really concerned about that. I think people treat e-bikes like they were bicycles, and they're not. They're motorized vehicles. Even scooters can go fast, but we need to try to have a special discussion about what we're going to do with the e-bikes, because letting them go up and down on the sidewalk, I'm just really concerned somebody's going to get knocked down, or you could even have children that are running out on the road to get away from them. The other thing is about the drones. I actually saw one flying over our neighborhood a little while ago, and I don't even know what the rules are for drones. I think it said in this that they were allowed in parks, but I know that there are people who are trying to eventually deliver merchandise by drone. I really don't know what the laws are for drones in this city, and for recreation, that's fine, but not flying over people's houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And next we have Peggy Griffin, and I believe Lloyd McKee wants to speak on this item. You didn't write down the number. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff. I'm concerned also about e-bikes. I have one, and this area, and I'm looking at if you could show the screen, I don't know if it'll work, but yeah. It's the culmination. It's where all the kids come from different areas, from the Hyde area, from the Sedgwick area, and you have pedestrians. You need this area to be slower. So e-bikes, either they get off their bike and walk it, or they turn it off, or they go on the street. I don't know what the solution is, but I would be concerned to have e-bikes allowed in this area with pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And Lloyd McKee? Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Lloyd McKee. When I was in 7th grade, that was about the time me and my brothers, we started paper routes. I would encourage people to drive the bike the way you're supposed to drive a car. There's a real good reason why you should drive your bike the same way a car drives, because technically you're a motor vehicle on the road as a bike, and you got to adhere to the same rules that a car does. So when I see people coming the opposite way and traffic is traveling this way, that's not a good idea. You should encourage people to drive the way a car drives, because there's really important ideas to that concept. And when you have bikes riding the same as cars, then we have the traffic flowing and we have people obeying the right laws. There was an incident when I was doing my deliveries, and I was coming the reverse way. A person was making a right turn, and there wasn't a lot of room on the right for me to go by. And I thought that if I was in front of the car, he would notice me. He didn't. He hit me, and I ended up in Good Sam. A couple days off from school, and my mom mentioned to me that they were really concerned because it was a PG&E car. But it turned out I was okay. I was a young kid, and you're easily, you have a lot of bruises, but you recover. But what I'd suggest you do is encourage people to drive like cars, because that's really the way we should be doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. And now we will move to those requesting to speak virtually. There are 3 hands raised: Lisa, Jennifer, Sharon, and San R. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I just have a question about water. At the beginning of this presentation from the city attorney, he was talking about San Jose water. I just want to remind people or let people know that San Jose Water is not the only water company that serves Cupertino. Cal Water serves a large, what I consider a large portion of the city. Not in perspective to the whole city, but it's not insignificant. So I just want to make sure if there's something in there that is reflecting San Jose Water, it also should be made sure that Cal Water is okay with it all. I also think that the e-bikes should be off that sidewalk at Cupertino High School. That sidewalk's been used with bikes and pedestrians for a long time, actually. It's already marked for bicycle on one section of it. It was repaved or re-cemented to create that, trying to keep bikes off the road, but I don't think it's appropriate that e-bikes go on it for several reasons. E-bikes have different classifications, as someone mentioned. It's over, I think, 28 miles per hour, then you need a driver's license, and there's other things associated. If it's under that speed, it's still too fast to be going on a sidewalk. I realize that you can pedal fast on a manual bike when you're a teenager. So other bikes can go faster too. I just don't think the electric bikes should be allowed on the sidewalk. And I agree with the last gentleman who was explaining bikes need to learn how to drive like a car. And I've seen many really irresponsible bike riders, both e-bikes and standard bikes, really irresponsible in that area and beyond. And the assumption that if you're at a 4-way stop and you're on a bike, you can just go through. Well, no, you can't. If there's a car and it's not your turn to go, you stop. And they just don't think that's the case. So, okay, I'm gonna keep babbling, but those are my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And next we have Jennifer Sharon, followed by San R. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan, City Council members, and City staff. I'm speaking tonight only as a resident of Cupertino. First, I want to say hello and welcome back to Councilmember Way. It's wonderful to see you, and I wish you a speedy recovery. I'll keep my comments brief. I urge you to accept all these changes to the municipal code. These are changes that are needed to match real-world use with our municipal code. The sidewalk along Finch Avenue is 10 feet wide, and it's not a regular sidewalk. It was deliberately widened for the purpose of having both bikes and pedestrians on it. I'm actually kind of wondering if anyone that is so fearful has seen this particular stretch of sidewalk or has watched students commuting on it in the morning. I have many times. I've done bike counts, watched morning commutes with transportation staff when I was a bike ped commissioner, and I even walked and biked with my children in the morning. I'm really familiar with it. The most danger for any student, especially during school commuting time, is from a car. Those that wish that biking students mix with traffic instead of safely on an extra wide mixed use path are really not considering the danger to our students. Students can die from cars. It's terrifying. Yes, we know that teens can be irresponsible. That's not in question. However, we need to just consider the fact that these are students and we care about them, and the safest place for them is on a mixed-use path. So e-bikes are bicycles. I own one myself. I ride it very safely and responsibly on paths, etc. Let's not let our fear get in that way. So anyway, thank you for considering my input tonight and your work on behalf of Cupertino, and welcome back again, Councilmember Way.
Thank you, Jennifer. And next we have San R. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan and council members. First, I'd like to thank the city attorney for his work on this. He does a thankless job, not appreciated often enough. So I want to thank him for the work he does here and in other places. I had a few comments on the red line version of the draft. I was curious why we are lifting the requirement for the TICC commissioner to be a voter. I would think that we have no shortage of residents that are voters and citizens that are willing to participate in these commissions, judging by the record number of interviews you guys have conducted for commissions in these last few years. And so it would seem to me like we should not loosen the criteria and then increase your pipeline, but rather give a priority for voters that are from the city, that are willing to sign up for the role and still get rejected time and time again, often due to the partisan means of this council majority that we have seen in the last 2 years, where they have appointed solely commissioners from their side of the aisle. So I would like to ask that the voter requirement be preserved on the TICC, on the red line version. That's the one. The second one that I see is, I'm curious why the Housing Commission did lift the requirement for the business person, and I see that being added back by Councilmember Chow, but I'm curious why that was lifted, and maybe there's a motivation there that we need to understand. And frankly, I would support 5 residents all being from the city of Cupertino. I don't know that Housing Commission necessarily needs to have a one business rep, but I'm glad to see that change, frankly, and I would support the change that was made. I would also be opposed to e-bikes on the sidewalk. I support bikes on the sidewalk. However, e-bikes are a totally different thing. They are at speeds that are unregulated and can cause injuries. So I do hope we can separate the e-bikes from the bikes. And I think that was the extent of my, there was one other comment on the TICC. I think there was a clause that was removed around providing oversight on the selection of vendors. And I would be supportive to retain that because I think there is checks and balances in the process. I work in a related field myself, and I think there's a number of considerations that our residents coming from the tech community can bring in the areas of cybersecurity, in the areas of making sure the tech stack is not a source of vulnerability for the city. And as much as we have fantastic city staff, I think you can gain a lot of benefit from the diversity of experience that our residents bring to the TICC. So I would recommend maintaining that item to provide advisory function on the providers, and the same thing for the communication providers. If you're going to remove that from TICC, I would like to see that added to the planning.
Thank you, Sam. That is your time. Mayor, no additional speakers for this item.
Okay. All right, so let's bring it back to council. If we can get a motion to accept the staff report, we can deliberate.
I'll make
after that.
I'll move the staff recommendation with the maintaining the business rep for Housing Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, let's go with the voice vote.
And I do have a comment still. Yeah. So
go ahead.
So
you get 1 minute.
Yeah. So here is that sidewalk we are talking about. It is about double the size of a normal sidewalk. So now I feel better. So this is most of the stretch of that stretch is double, except the area that's closest to Cupertino High. So it makes sense to be mixed used, but high schoolers, if they are in a rush to get to school on time, I can't really trust them to be responsible. I think vehicle driver there is a state law, right? Vehicle has to be 3 feet away from a bicycle. So is it possible in the implementation we have some rule that bicycle has to be certain distance away from pedestrian? If they can pass without that distance, they should just walk the bike. Is that practical? Then whether it's electric or not, it's fine.
So generally, the operation of bicycles is regulated by the California Vehicle Code. So I would need to look at how much we would be able to modify that at a local level.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so I'm willing to approve this, but I hope that implementation we can figure out a safer way to protect the pedestrians. Yeah. Okay.
Councilmember Moore?
Thank you. So both of my sons attended Cupertino High School. Having the bike riders on the sidewalk, it's directional traffic. If you don't allow this, the kids at Cupertino High School, they're over 12 years old. They're too old to be riding on the sidewalk. So we do need, in my opinion, to have this exemption. Otherwise, you're going to have a row of parked cars, and the kids are going to be in the middle of the street, having to go outside around those vehicles. So to me, this is a much safer proposition for that area. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Fruin.
So I just want to underscore what Councilmember Moore just described. I'll also note that there is no actual bike lane here. Otherwise, there's a sharrow, which might as well not even be a thing. So if you want to keep kids safe here, you really have to deconflict them from the cars. The only realistic way to do that in this space, and it's clearly designed for it with an extra wide sidewalk, is to allow them to ride on the sidewalk.
Okay, seeing no other comments, we have a motion to accept the staff report.
As modified by the supplemental report, yes.
And modified by the supplemental report. Okay. And do we have a second? We do have a second already. Okay, so it's time for the voice vote, Madam City Clerk.
Aye.
Sorry. Councilmember Chow?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Aye.
Mayor Mohan?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously as amended.
Great, thank you. Okay, we get to the last item on the agenda, which is item number 8. Subject is to unassign funds from the committed sales tax repayment reserve. And I can see staff taking their places, so we're ready for a staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. As Christina and her staff getting ready for a very long presentation in front of you, just wanted to shout out to the team and also council for allowing us to have this conversation today. So the item before you is really to understand the funding that will be available for the city to consider and also for council to consider allocating. As Christina is going to go through again her lengthy presentation, this is an opportunity for us to take a breather and also celebrate. So with that said, I'm going to turn over to Christina.
That better?
Yep.
Good evening. As City Manager Wu mentioned, I have a very lengthy presentation of 3 slides, including the title slide and the recommendation slide. So with that, just wanted to provide a little bit of history before we get into the next slide, which is about a year ago or so. We brought the idea to council to create a sales tax repayment reserve, as we had gotten a determination letter from CDTFA at that time about disputed sales tax. We came back to council in May of this year as part of the third quarter financial report, to increase that reserve to $74.5 million, taking us through the end of the prior fiscal year. This evening, given the good news we've received regarding the appeal to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, or CDTFA. We're before you this evening as promptly as we could be to ask that you uncommit those funds. So this next slide shows where we were as of Q3 and kind of where we are currently as we're still in the middle of our year-end audit for the prior year. These are unaudited financials. That's the last column. A couple of things I want to point out here. So this is fund balance in the general fund. What you'll see is we had the sales tax repayment reserve at $74.5 million. What we're recommending to this evening is that reserve go down to zero and be removed from our reserve fund balance, reserve, and one-time use policy. The second thing on this table is the unassigned. You'll see that go from $26.6 million to $101.1 million, effectively just moving the money into that unassigned category. And then lastly, total fund balance would remain unchanged. We do think it's important that we bring this to council this evening. One, because we have the decision from the CDTFA. Two, it lets our residents and our readers know that we're making an update to this reserve. The reason for having this reserve is no longer there, and so we're coming as quickly as we can to move that money into the unassigned. We're not asking you to spend or allocate any of the dollars this evening, simply to move them to the unassigned, as the sales tax repayment reserve is no longer necessary. With that, we have the recommendations before you this evening, and staff is available should you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Christina. And Jonathan. Any questions for the staff based on the staff report that we just heard? I am not seeing. Oh, Councilmember Way.
I have no questions, but I want to give a shout out to our city attorneys and his team to give such great news that this is a good meeting for me to come back, because we have money to spend. Even though it's one-time money, but it's really good finance team for, I want to really give a shout out to City Attorney Chris Jensen for his expertise and negotiation power. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Councilmember Way.
Yes, we wanted to make sure you had some good news to celebrate, Councilmember Way, so this was deliberately done. Vice Mayor Fruin, you had a comment?
Yeah, if you could just elaborate for the sake of the public, what would happen with these funds moving from where they are right now, uncommitted, to, from a committed fund to the unassigned fund balance?
Unassigned is just a category that says, by definition, it's not in any of the other categories, it falls to assign. So the funds just stay there. Council, if we want to allocate budget for any particular project, that has to come back to City Council for that allocation to happen. So we're basically just moving it from one bucket to the other, and there's really no other change related to the dollars.
Got it. And the funds would continue to be subject to our investment policy and so forth.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Moore?
Is the city going to be required to remit some payments back to the entity which was audited?
I think what I could say in response to that question is the city will honor all of its contractual obligations related to this issue.
So is that a yes?
I think that's a yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 35% of the 74.5, or how's that calculation work?
I'll defer to our admin services team, but I believe I believe that there are separate funds set aside for the repayment.
So I believe the dollars that you're referring to are actually not part of this number. We've held them in a liability account. So the 74.5 is the total that would be coming back. The payment has already been accounted for.
So there's a liability account somewhere?
Correct. Yeah, this liability account is part of our accounting.
Okay, so is that a separate bank account, separate checking account? What is that?
It's all within the same, so not separate. It's just a separate account So we have our assets, liabilities, revenues, expenditures. This is just an asset account that we held to say, hey, this money, we don't know if it's going to be ours or not, so we held it in a liability account.
Okay. And how much is in that liability account?
Don't believe I'm available to disclose that, as it is considered sales tax information, which is confidential.
So if we were to move this money out of reserves, an undisclosed amount would be going away.
We would be making a payment.
And when do we get to know how much that payment is for? I mean, it's not like this money is going to be leaving the city without us having a record.
Correct. It would be part of the accounts payable when the payment is made.
Huh. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Wade?
Well, I just want to emphasize this is one-time money, right? It is not like we have recurring money coming back.
Correct. This is one-time money.
Okay. So what are the practical implications of this? We took it from a restricted account and we are putting it into an unrestricted account. So
correct. So you had it in a committed fund balance, which means that committed refers to that the highest level of the governing board sets aside the money for a specific purpose. When it comes to unassigned, it just means the money isn't specifically earmarked or restricted in any way when it moves into the unassigned category. Again, if we wanted to allocate those funds to actually expend them, that's something council must approve.
Right. Except that we are not planning on doing that.
Correct. That's not what we're asking for this evening. This evening, we're simply asking that you uncommit the funds.
And this will come back for discussion when you start your budget process?
We'll bring this back the second meeting in November, at least a preliminary discussion as part of the first quarter financial report.
I see. And will this number have changed by then?
We don't anticipate it changing. We are in the middle of of our audit for last fiscal year, but again, right now we don't think that number would be changing. It would remain the same.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Chow, you get 1 minute.
1 minute?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So this 74 million represents the amount in the worst case, we would have to pay back accumulated from 2021, right?
Correct, going back to 2021.
And then it's just moving now from one bucket to another bucket. So if we just keep them in the current bucket, it doesn't hurt anything, right?
It doesn't, but it also doesn't align us with what we know to be fact.
But then, because I feel like we have accumulated this amount over 3 years, so if we just rename the account, would that be okay so that it reflects the fact? But that's not. Put it on the side, it feels like we are ready to spend it. It doesn't feel good.
I'll take that question. If council remember, when we asked you to reserve those funds last October, it was for this one specific purpose. So in order to celebrate our good news that we learned recently, we're asking you to uncommit. If council would like to keep them in the current location, that's council's discretion. We're kind of following through the rationale that we asked you to commit the fund about a year ago.
If I could just add to that, doesn't it make a difference in the financial reporting?
It does not.
Well, it should, right?
Good evening,
You
Mayor
take
and
it.
council members. Actually, it does. So if we leave those funds in that committed fund, it is misrepresenting our fund balances.
Right.
And so now that we know that the purpose for those committed funds is no longer in place, we need to move those funds back to unassigned. That's not to say that the council cannot recommit those funds for a different purpose at a later time, but this is just the process that we need to get to. And so, again, as Director Alfaro mentioned earlier, we're not spending the money. This is just the accounting process. And at the later time, if you want to spend the money or commit it to a different program, you can do so.
Right. It's I think just a matter of reflecting accurately what this action entails. All right, we are getting to the 10:30 mark. Let's go with 1 minute, Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. So looking at the red line that we have, it says that an initial allocation of $56.5 million corresponds to sales tax revenue received between April 2021 and June 2023 that the city may need to repay to the CDTFA. All or part of the funds will be transferred to the general fund unassigned if the city's efforts to contest CDTFA's decision are ultimately successful in whole or part. So this actually, what we have in the policy says all or part of the funds will be transferred. So it doesn't look like we originally intended for all of it to be moved out. So that I don't know why, but there was some leeway given. Additionally, in the supplemental reports, what stands out to me as a red flag is it says the City Council will have its first opportunity to discuss options for use of the funds reallocated from the reserve at its November 19th meeting. Staff recommendations that will be presented at that meeting are currently being developed. That frightens me because it looks like there's a plan in the works that we don't know about to start spending this money, and I think that that's very unwise.
If I could just speak to the first comment. Yeah. Again, we did not know what the outcome of the appeal with the CDTFA was going to be, and so we added that language in case some of it did have to be paid back. We wanted to have that flexibility.
Okay. All right, seeing no other comments, let's go with staff recommendation. Public
we
comments.
need to go to public comment.
I forgot. Public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, Mayor, I have
Clerk?
two requests to speak from in Community Hall, and I see one hand raised virtually requesting to speak.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, first we have Jennifer Griffin, followed by Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening again, City Council. Thank you, staff, for a good report. I know it was shorter. I thought it was going to be really long. Yes, we have some very important decisions to make about this money. I will pass along how fully traumatizing it was the last 3 to 4 years to have our city in a situation like this where the state was investigating Apple and the taxes, et cetera. Along with the pandemic, realizing that the city was almost into bankruptcy was extremely traumatizing for the public, for me. It led to a lot of sleepless nights. I had a great deal of anxiety about it. And now that it has been resolved, thank heavens, I really don't want this money to go into the general fund. I'm of the mind that we put it in the rainy day fund. We almost had a absolute disaster as a city. We survived the pandemic, and now we have some good fortune. We have, I guess, $74.5 million that is sounds like it was free and clear, if I understand that correctly, with the liability account is separate. I think we need to save it. I don't want it spent. I want it put aside, and if you want to call it rainy day fund, that's what I was taught as a child. It's a piggy bank. You put your money in it and save it for a rainy day. We still have a lot of challenges coming up with our country, with our politics, with our weather, and I really do not want this money put in the general fund. I don't want it anywhere near the general fund. I don't want it spent. I, as a public member of this city, want to make sure that we are financially solvent, that we don't go throwing our dollars away on some unnecessary frivolity when we have just survived the edge of disaster. Please make sure that this money is secured, it is fully invested, and I suggest that you call it either piggy bank or rainy day fund, but do not let it anywhere near the general fund. We need to save it by the grace of whatever, thank you. We have survived some horrible thing that was going, you don't even get my husband started on this because it is legal. But yeah, please save it, keep it safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next we have Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff. It scares me. Councilmember Way said, we have money to spend. And Director Alfaro said, it won't be earmarked or restricted in any way. We are facing 10 years of a structural budget deficit. From what I understand, it means that the city's income will be less than the city's expenses, so leading to a negative balance that will grow over time. This is scary. It's a scary thought, and one should not to be taken lightly. My suggestion is, rather than transfer these restricted funds into the general fund tonight, rename it. I thought we took out a little bit of the economic uncertainty money during the budget to balance. I might be wrong on that, but why can't we move it into there instead? Isn't that an option? You're going to move the money, but move it in a place that is restricted so that you consciously spend the money. In the general fund, contract can be increased, and the budget can be increased, and the money gets eaten up. Please don't do this. In November, the staff was going to provide options for what to do with the money. Why not wait till then? See what the options are. What's the rush? It feels like it's a money grab, and it's going to happen in November. Please, this is our city and our finances. Be conservative. Don't move the money. Thank you. Rename it.
Thank you, Peggy. And we have two hands raised requesting to speak virtually. Rod Sinks and San R. Welcome, Rod.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So I'd like to congratulate the city council leadership and staff leaders who worked wisely over the last couple of years to mitigate the risks and manage. This is a big deal for the city. To have negotiated this deal very successfully means that we are not losing years potentially worth of a clawback, and it could have bankrupted the city easily, and cities do go through bankruptcy. You have examples in Vallejo and Stockton, not so very far away. As former Mayor Hung Wei emphasized, we should think of this as one-time money. We put it aside, having to scrimp and save, and we do need to rebuild the revenue stream that we won't have going forward, which I understand is on the order of $30 million a year. So the best way to do that, in my view, is to get our economic development moving again. I'm looking forward to seeing a downtown in Cupertino where we can spend our sales tax dollars as consumers at restaurants and entertainment places and retail, and really see something big happen in our city. And when we do that, we'll be able to restore a lot of services that we may have to forego for a while. We're gonna be in some tough times, I think. We used to have a lot of revenue from Balco Fashion Park. We had a lot of revenue from Apple coming in as sales tax, and now it's time to work in earnest to replace that. So congratulations to you, who I know went to Sacramento and talked to a lot of folks to try to work out a deal with the state. And thanks to your efforts that we are now getting set on the right foot to begin the next phase of our city's success. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. And next we have San R. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Mohan and council members. I was looking at the city calendar and it looks like the next council meeting is one day before the election. And then we are in uncharted waters as to what the council composition would be after that. And so I would request you to defer on this item to continue and not make a decision. If you have to make a decision, maybe you rename it to an economic uncertainty reserve, as was suggested, I believe, by Peggy Griffin. I am extremely concerned that between this decision tonight and the one sole remaining council meeting, that this council majority will choose to spend the money and perhaps buy that office building that has been in closed session thus far. So there are checks and balances needed. You're at the last innings of a 9 innings game from the past 2 years. And we should let the November 5th process play out and let the new council that's coming in determine what the appropriate judicious use of these funds should be and make sure that the funds can be applied in a way that is taking into account the long-term economic conditions for the city. For all we know, as was mentioned at the mayor's chai yesterday, residents are the ones that deal with this mess for the long term. There are residents here that have been here the last 30, 40 years that want to be here for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And you can't say the same for the city manager, and you can't say the same for the mayor, and you can't say the same for this council. And so it's really the residents' money that you're dealing with here. We ask that you exercise extreme fiscal discipline and not mow this hastily with two council meetings to go before an election. So please do not take any decisions. Please, if you have to put it in an economic reserve, let it earn 5% interest and make no decisions tonight. And hopefully we don't see an agenda item coming back to say we're going to spend it and buy that office building next meeting one day before the election. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Mayor, no additional requests to speak.
Okay, so that ends the public comments for this item. Let's bring it back to council with a motion, and we can continue to deliberate if we need to. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. I move that we form an economic uncertainty reserve number 2. This is not lottery winnings. We would need someone like a financial analyst to help us with this. We'll call it a windfall, but this is not the time to be moving our money into the unassigned fund balance and then looking for staff recommendations on how to start spending it. That is very unwise. So the economic uncertainty reserve would be able to have the liability funds removed from it in order to reimburse or to remit back to the taxpayer in question the amount that they are owed.
Councilmember Chow.
I'll second that, but I have some question that I think members brought up, the public brought up. So the economic reserve, what was the balance before? And I remember we also every year contribute some dollar for the CIP reserve, and the past year we didn't do that. So these are all.
So the first question is, we did reduce the economic uncertainty reserve because per policy, it's I believe 2 months of expenditures and I believe 2 months of revenues without transfer. So there's a definition for how that number is calculated. Because we made budget reductions, that number also came down. So we brought it down to align with the policy with the reduced budget. for economic uncertainty. The second question on the CIP reserve, we used to do annual transfers as part of our mid-year budget to the capital reserve, but since December of 2021, we halted that transfer because we knew that there could be potential dollars, substantial dollars in jeopardy for the city. So we have not completed the transfer. The CIP is funded primarily from funds from prior years and or grant funds that they're able to receive.
So I think it's about $8 million a year usually.
It had varied depending on how our fund balance came in, but it ranged. So I think the forecast used to have about $2 million annually being transferred out as a base number, but currently that's pulled out of the first 5 years of the forecast, with that transfer resuming in year 6 of the forecast.
Yeah, thank you. So as I understand from city manager that this is really a gesture to celebrate the windfall we have, and this adjustment is not really necessary. Yes, it won't be 100% accurate, but like Christina always say, our budget the next day is not accurate because things are changing. So it doesn't have to be 100% accurate all the time. So yeah, I think we don't have to move it to the uncommitted fund. It does feel unnecessary, and because we have the upcoming structural deficit, so and maybe need to replenish some other fund that we have not saved up. So let's do that discussion when it comes. Yeah, thank you.
So my understanding is we are just unrestricting the account. So it doesn't mean, as some people have implied, that this is a sort of a free pass to spend the money. Council still has to approve every expenditure. And all we are saying is we heard the CDTFA decision, which is that we don't need to set aside that money to pay them back, and we are unrestricting it. And whether we and the comment that I heard that it can't be general fund, it is general fund. Whether we put it in economic reserve, economic development, what's the term? Economic
uncertainty reserve.
Uncertainty reserve, or something else. It's all still general fund, and I don't recall in the time that I've been here where we've made spending decisions without council approving it. So I'm a little surprised that people think that we can just go ahead and make decisions about spending this money. It's not going to happen. It hasn't happened. It won't happen, and it won't happen until we have a full-blown discussion on it. And the right time to have this discussion is during the budget process. So I'm not expecting the $75 million to somehow disappear between now and the budget decision. So my decision, my position is that we unrestrict it, and the whole point of this is unrestricting it, not so much where we are going to put it. We can call it any name we want, but it is still going to be general fund, and it's still going to be unrestricted. All right. Having said that, Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. So I want to reiterate what's in the supplemental report, that the City Council will have its first opportunity to discuss options for use of the funds, that's spending it, reallocated from the reserve at its November 19th meeting. Staff recommendations, we've directed staff not on any bit of policy for how to spend. There's been no direction, no public discussion about this. Staff's just going to go start making recommendations on how to spend the money without having our direction. I don't think that that's acceptable. We have a fiduciary duty to the public. I'm bothered by Councilmember Way returning after 3 months. Delighted to be here because in her eyes, there's money to spend. No. This is money that belongs to our taxpayers to be stewards of. We need to be careful and plan for our new structural deficit. And I'm very, very concerned about what I'm seeing among my fellow council members this evening. We have a fiduciary duty.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Fruin.
Yeah, I think this is an incredible amount of pedantic hand-wringing for very little purpose. Frankly, the purpose of a budget is to account for where you're going to put all of your money, whether that's saving it or spending it or choosing to do something that would invest it. And I think that that's ordinarily something that would be brought to us using the expertise of our staff to tell us these are places where we think it should go. These are some cuts that we thought were too deep. Maybe we need to restore some services, et cetera, et cetera. We have a process for that. I think we should be respecting that process rather than engaging in a lot of pearl clutching.
Councilmember Wei.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to say I didn't come back for 3 months to spend the money. The purpose is not to spend the money. It is a one-time fund, and that we won't spend it until the council and the public approve it. So there is going to be a process. It's not about spending the money. It's really about celebrating a win from our city. So I think it is worth celebrating. This is the good news. So I'm not proposing spending any money. And I would like to really second what Mayor has said. We're not here to decide to spend, how to spend the money. We're here to approve that it's going to come back to the general fund, and which is general accounting that our city has been really conservative about doing. So it is really not about spending the money. Let's not spend the money right now. And I totally agree. Whether it be running fund or whether it be let's save it for next, but what's good for the city. So I hope that no one misunderstood my intention of spending the money. This is not about spending the money. This is about where we're going to put the money, and that we can future planning it with our city council's approval. And actually agree one of the comments from one of the. Because, we are going to have a new council coming up pretty soon. The new council should decide what to do with the money, with the public's approval, with the council's approval. So let's stop and slow down and work with our council and work with our public to make sure that we understand this is one-time money. We're not getting it back because we can't just continue to spend it. But with economic development, I like what Rossing says. With economic development, if we could make good use of the money and have income coming out of it, it is good, prudent financial planning. And I trust our finance department has very good sense of finance planning. So I really think we have very conservative and good finance team to guide us how to, what to do with this one-time money. So let's not, I want to make sure that I understand Mayor's proposal. I think that's a good proposal. It is a general fund. We're going to park it somewhere and then decide what to do with it in the future.
Okay, Vice Mayor Fruin.
Just to clarify what Councilmember Wei is referring to when you say, Mayor, moving it to the general fund, are you referring to the staff recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll make a substitute motion to adopt the staff recommended action.
Okay, so let's do a voice vote. We have
a second for that motion, Mayor.
The motion has to be accepted.
Somebody will need to second that motion.
Pardon me?
Somebody will need to second the motion.
Can I second it? Okay. Councilmember Wei has seconded it. And did you have a comment, Councilmember?
How much time do I have to make a comment?
I will let you make a quick comment. 30 seconds.
Okay. Councilmember Wei brought up Rodsing's comment. I'd like to correct his comment. Any kind of development for downtown will take years. To expect that to bring sales tax enough, it's not possible. And Rodsing's killed the Focal Shopping Mall with 2 million square feet of office, so that any development there has been office heavy, very little retail. Main Street used, the first approval had a lot of retail athletic club. He killed it by allocating more office to Main Street. So don't expect him to be able to bring sales tax or any downtown. It's just an excuse to get his developer deals to pass through. Thank you.
Okay, let's just get back to what we are doing here. All we're doing is we're not spending, we're not giving any direction to use the money. All we're saying is unrestricting it and putting it or transferring it from an unrestricted part to, from a restricted part to an unrestricted part. And that's all that we are asked to do today. We're not looking at any decisions about how to spend it, how to manage it, how to allocate it, nothing of that sort. It's a fairly straightforward motion, and we have a motion, we have a second, and let's vote, let's do a voice vote. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Chow?
No.
Councilmember Moore?
No.
Councilmember Wei?
Hi.
Vice Mayor Fruin?
Yes.
Mayor Mohan?
Yes.
The motion carries, the substitute motion carries with Chow and Moore voting no.
Okay, that was, yes, it's 10:55, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.